I'm sure she's correct this time of year. No, I'm back. I'm back to which one? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, October the 21st. To start the meeting, will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be aware this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, and the meeting may also be audio or video recorded by people present in the room. Our first item of business is public comment. So this is the opportunity to ask a question or make a comment about anything other than a subject that is on the agenda, because there'll be opportunities during the meeting to do that. So is there anybody wanting to make a public comment? Mr. Lyons? you wouldn't mind coming up and using the microphone, please?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, members of the board. I'm Stephen Lyons, representing Save Forsyth Farm, a historic 200-plus-year-old historic asset of tremendous cultural and importance to our community. I want to thank the board for some positive steps moving forward in terms of trying to stabilize this unstable property. With that said, we do have a lot of concerns, and most specifically, number one is the fact that it appears there has been demolition, hints of demolition emerging. Thanks to Mr. Bayshore, I contacted him Monday. He was not aware of any demolition permits that have been filed. We do have new information that as of last week, PICO and USIC showed up to Bobolink Lane, marking utility lines, and there was a work order that specifically stated demolition. This is of enormous concern to our community. As we know, the conservatorship court hearing will not take place until November 10th, and we're wondering how this is moving forward since there is an absence of any demolition permit or any development plans whatsoever. Who authorized the utility company to shut off the gas lines to 905? The other concern is if a demolition process is going to be moving forward, our community needs to be aware of that process. We have concerns about hazmat issues pertaining to the house. There is asbestos, there is lead, there's particulates could be into the air, affecting the wetlands and our nearby community. Has the township completed an environmental impact study, especially considering endangered species of bog turtle and a state protected red belly turtle? We also want to know, is there a timeline, will there be a timeline issued for the conservatorship and any information shared with the public, a timeline for what the conservator will be adhering to, and then opportunities for our community to comment on that. Let me see here. Hazmat, public service. We're growing increasingly concerned too that there is a view that this is a nuisance that must be eliminated. Our township does not have any heritage site, and as we move forward in trying to address this problem, our group, Save Forsyth Farm, is advocating for the first of its kind an open space / heritage site, which would acknowledge the enormous abolition, Underground Railroad, education, natural sciences tradition of our community. The nature of the American Quakers, especially here in Chester County, is enormous. The township, as you know, dates back to 1704. And we are advocating that we move in that direction. We are 99% maxed out with respect to development, and we have nothing that identifies our enormous legacy to assisting freedom seekers. I've been working on the historical research. We've been building partnerships. The North American Land Trust is on standby and ready to have a conversation with how we can create this unique opportunity. And I know that I have thrown a lot at you, and I appreciate your patience, but there is a serious concern because this is immense history. and I do promise to deliver a document that will outline the history, why it's important to our community as it intersects multiple histories. And Forsyth Farm is really a nexus of multiple connected histories. So with that said, I will pause. I think we addressed mostly everything tonight.
Thank you. Chris, I don't know if you want to comment on the status of demolition permit applications or PICO's presence in the area. Do you have any?
So in terms of PICO's presence in the area, if the property owner, because that's what he is a property owner, wishes to have the utility service cut off, that is within his right. The township has no jurisdiction over that. That is a choice that he's making. As it relates to the demolition permit process, as I said to you on the phone, and in at least 1 or 2 emails, there have been no permits filed with the township, and there have been no development plans filed with the township. It is working its way through the conservatorship process through the court. The hearing is scheduled for November 10th. And there are timelines on that Mr. Ewald went over that are prescribed by law that he would have to adhere to. In terms of the permitting process, and I'll allow Shelby or Brian to correct me if I'm wrong, if hypothetically speaking, he were to submit a demolition permit, he would have to include verification of utility shutoffs. He would also have to include anything related to asbestos or lead paint, showing that those things have been properly abated. Is that correct, Brian and Shelby?
As far as I know.
As it relates to an environmental impact study, the township would not undertake that. We do not own the property. The property owner would have to undertake that. And if there were any kind of a development plan that would be submitted, that would be a component of any sort of land development application that would be submitted. And again, absolutely nothing has been submitted to the township for review or consideration. And it is working its way through the conservatorship process.
And also to clarify, you just haven't got to pay the township the fines that are due to.
Correct. No permit.
Demo permit would be issued.
As the township solicitor had indicated back on September 2nd, under the Neighborhood Blight Act, the township is within its power to withhold the issuance of a permit until any sort of outstanding fees are paid to the township. And to the best of my knowledge, there's been no payment made on the outstanding fees to the township.
So in the absence of a permit, if any activity starts, what is our course of action?
If he's demoing the structures, that would be covered under demolition permit process, and there are enforcement mechanisms outlined in, I think, Shelby, would it be the UCC? That would outline, there would be enforcement mechanisms outlined under the UCC. But as it relates to the activity that you called me about, that all was in response, that wouldn't be covered under a demolition permit, like the removal of brush, the removal of weeds, invasive species, things like that. That was all based on a notice of violation that Ms. Smith issued to him. So he was doing exactly what Ms. Smith asked him to do.
Yeah, but according to the neighbors, he was actually clearing a pathway to the bobolink egress route.
That again would not be covered under a demolition permit. It might be covered under other permits, but we have no documentation to show that there's anything that's occurred. If you have stuff to the contrary, you're welcome to submit that to our codes department, and we'll investigate it accordingly.
Yeah, it's just significant that he is trying to attempt to build a pathway up to his property line, which could be indicative.
Not to put her on the, I apologize for putting her on the spot, but Shelby, when you and Mr. Beswick went out there a couple weeks ago,
I personally did not attend with Mr. Beswick. It was Mr. Beswick and Mr. McCarthy. But no, it's totally okay. As I understand it, he was cutting up to where he owned on Bobolink.
Okay.
Like I said, that section of Bobolink is a little different. There's that old paper route right there.
Which there's a question of whether or not the right-of-way rights have expired given the age of it.
Correct. But I would note that if he was cutting brush or removing trees or whatever was taking place on a neighboring property, that would be a private property matter through the civil courts. It wouldn't be with the township.
I would agree.
So, but what if he takes an action and not, like, if he doesn't submit a demo plan and all of a sudden he shows up with demo equipment, what should we do?
Notify us and we'll send her,
we would issue a stop work order.
Okay.
So if, he comes out, you see a crane there getting ready to demolish, call us. Building codes department would go down, whether it be myself, Mike McCarthy, or John Beswick. We'd go down, issue a stop work order. No work would be able to take place until they satisfy the conditions of that stop work order, which in this case sounds like it would be to issue a permit.
Okay. It has come to our attention that in this conservatorship process, Mr. Kravitz filed a per se 3 days after the deadline. So again, that shows a consistent pattern of incompetence.
Well, that would be up for the judge to determine. It's been assigned to Judge Barraway and the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. That's up to the judge to determine. I don't think it would be appropriate for the board to really opine on that.
It's useful information in terms of a consistent pattern of neglect and failure to do necessary protocols. And I just want to briefly highlight the good work that Ted Worrell and his company are actually doing with respect to the Ellis Lane project. They've presented plans, they've been timely, they're going to preserve the historic asset on site, and I think it's a great example of how developers work in tandem balancing these needs. We've not had that from Mr. Kravitz, and this history is...
I think the use of the word developer with Mr. Kravitz is an inaccurate description at best. We work with many developers. I think that term is an inaccurate description.
Not according to him.
I believe that term is an inaccurate description. He is a property owner.
Stephen, with respect to some of the other comments you made, particularly about the conservatorship, I would refer everybody who's interested in that to go look at the YouTube video of our September 2nd meeting, where we had a lengthy conversation about the whole conservatorship process. Mr. Ewald Esquire was here and outlined the whole timeline for that as well, I believe. And we also read from the conservatorship document that's been presented to the judge. So the next key step really is how the judge views the situation with respect to that. And as Mr. Bayshore said, that's on November the 10th at 1:30 at the Court of Common Pleas.
I just conferred with the solicitor. The conservatorship petition, as I had stated previously, is a public record. So if you were to file a right to know request, it would be a responsive record. Like that is a public record. If you would like a copy of it through the right to know process.
Yes, the one challenge for our group, though, is unfortunately we have not been able to file a petition for a party of interest. So in lieu of that, I mean, we're just going to continue to show up. I think once you see this history, it'll be pretty amazing. And we don't have one heritage site devoted to the tremendous legacy of our community.
Just to remind you about the conservatorship process, the board's action to file a petition and to therefore make it into a legal process with respect to the Blighted Properties Act. As we discussed at the September 2nd meeting, although we're the petitioner, the conservatorship, the appointed conservator, if the judge does that, we still don't know whether that will happen. That decision will presumably be made on November the 10th. But if the conservator is appointed, they will be the ones driving the process, not the township.
Yeah.
Let's remind people of that.
So will township publish the timeline of, or will the conservator publish the timeline of his action items with opportunity for public comment?
We will definitely work with the conservator, and we'll obviously do whatever we can to make sure whatever information that is available is posted on the website, or as part of ongoing public discussion as part of a board meeting. Chris, I don't know if anything you can add to that.
No, I think we'll see what comes out of November.
Yeah.
And I believe I don't believe the judge will render a decision on November 10th. I think there's some time. I believe, if I'm remembering what Mr. Ewald said, once there's a hearing, there's a timeline in which to render that decision, so it might be a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct. There's some time the judge takes to review the information he hears on November the 10th. Yeah.
So I know this is not a township question, but since we know that he filed his per se 3 days late, what recourse would we have in order to communicate to the judge, how can you accept his per se 3 days
We
after.
cannot communicate with the judge outside of the hearing process. So the judge will render a decision based on the evidence that's presented. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, you can always avail yourself of whatever processes are available to access the court. You can file paperwork on your own behalf, you can hire an attorney to file paperwork on your behalf. The way that you communicate with the court depends on what you're communicating to the court, and it really just varies. But the township can communicate on your behalf to the court. So at this time, if you want to communicate with the court, you have to do it yourself.
Does township, thank you, does township have a view in terms of preserving this home?
I think we had a public discussion around the board's position on the property. We, as you know, have discussed this for quite some time. The whole blighted property situation. We had an appraisal done of the property value, and of course this appraised value had 2 separate sessions related to potential real estate acquisition, and we did not have a majority of the board in favor of spending $2 million of township taxpayer money to buy the property, assuming that we could have purchased it for that amount, which is the maximum we could do for an appraised value. There are additional unknown costs associated beyond that, of course, with what we would end up doing with the property. And historic preservation is expensive, and again, the value of the property would be really is dependent on its development potential. So
I just want to
I'm just
emphasize-
repeating what we've already talked about in the past.
Well, some points, yes. Within 24 hours, we raised $725, exceeding our goal by $225. Within 24 hours, upon posting our concerns about demolition of this asset, we had 108 views. We had 10 people sign up on Facebook with concerns about the destruction and demolition of this historic asset. We do, and I respect your position, Chair, we do have an obligation to protect, preserve, and promote our history. Typically, our history is centered on the Battle of the Clouds and Brandywine. We have an enormous abolition history, and right now in this period in American history, we need to honor the daughters of light, the women who made this community truly great, people like Sarah Allibone Speakman McKim. Her husband was James Miller McKim, part of the Anti-Slavery Society in Philadelphia. She wasn't allowed to join that society, so she joined. She created her own with her colleagues, the Female Anti-Slavery Society. She was part of the 1837 burning of Pennsylvania Hall. She grew up at Highland Farm, just on the other side of Westchester. Those Speakman families, they're related to William and Thomas Speakman, who lived in our township, across the street from one of the most historic African Methodist Episcopal churches in the country, established in 1817. It was a station on the Underground Railroad. The Winters family worked on Forsyth land. There's an extensive history here. And I just want to emphasize Thomas Garrett Jr., the station master in Wilmington, who assisted Harriet Tubman, assisted her through Route 52 up to Barnard Station, a National Heritage Site of enormous consequence. And right here in the land of Goshen, these families went to Westtown School. The Forsyths established that school and sent children there for generations. He wrote the first textbook, Conley's Grammar, which formed the minds and hearts of these abolition families. And that story is so lost. It's so lost, and it is a shame. And I just want to say that there are people, there's a community of lion hearts that values our history and our legacy. And we need to teach our children, the people who had guts and courage to stand up to authoritarianism right here in Goshen. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else with public comment? Doug?
Hi, I'm Doug White, West Goshen, just in response to Steve. Stephen, thank you for your comments. There are other historical properties here. The Shargos Estate, we had other losses of very historical homes, Bishop's Lodge, and other homes. So I agree with the board's decision to just do what you do in terms of code enforcement. I would encourage the group here for 905 Westtown to possibly purchase the property and then create that way, or work with the property owner, who has been actually very gracious in letting Michael Pilagoli document it. So try not to be adversarial, work with him, and I think you'll make headway with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else in public comment? Mr. Ibarra?
My name is Abbas Riberi. I am a full-time corruption investigator. I investigate corruptions in the police department, townships, and report it to the proper authorities. As a result of my investigation, my team and I, we discovered there was a tax fraud going on in West Goshen Police Officers Association. They were not 501c, they were not paying their taxes. We gave that information to the proper authority. They were issued cease and desist order and were asked to pay or ordered to pay $6,000 of fine. The second item was we discovered there was significant amount of theft going on that little medicine box you see in the police department. If you're older people, you have a lot of medicine you don't use, you can deposit it in there, and that medication gets shipped out to a different location. And as a result of that investigation, Mr. Rauer was caught stealing that drugs, utilizing that to solicit prostitution, sexual favors, things of that nature. In a small police department, I find that interesting. The chief of police of this township didn't know what was going on in his own crew. And also, I found that interesting that this board, or previous board, they didn't take any action. As a result of this, I was renovating my ex-wife's property on 5011 Court Circle. And despite of repeated attempt, me getting FOIA requests, Freedom of Information requests, I was given a runaround. After a while, they weaponized the police department and DA's office, which is another corrupt entity. In fact, the head of the DA office now is a judge. And what they did, they came and arrested me by phony charges. They put me through a ringer for 3 years. Legal expenses, massive heart attack, lost eye, lost kidney, damage to lung as a result of stress. Now, one day before trial, the DA dropped all the charges. And after all this, they did everything they can do illegally. Now it's my turn to exercise my constitutional right pursuant to U.S. Code 42, Section 1983, and prove my point to this police department. They cannot do things like that. By the way, you are the employee of this police department. The lawsuit's coming to you guys. The bottom line is, this township have a history of corruption. I mean, the new board that I see, I hear good things about it. Especially that gentleman next to Mr. Sean on the right-hand side. So I hear good things about it. You have to ask yourself, why do we have a new township manager? Why do we have a new township manager? Why do we have a new township zoning officer? They were subject of my investigation. Now, it's very difficult to get information when you are in control of that information unless there's a litigation that I am entitled to, deposition, discovery, do all that. So that's basically long and short of it. Expect to see me more often. Expect to see me in police department. By the way, I'm in front of the courthouse with the big sign. It says West Goshen Police, racist, corrupt, tax cheat, drug thief. and I'm gonna be there for a while, and also in front of your township building. Anybody has any information about corruption in East Goshen, in West Goshen, please contact me. You know how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else with public comment? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is a presentation from Land Studies on Streambank project feasibility studies at 2 sites in West Goshen Township, Goose Creek and Barker Park, for potential incorporation into the township's pollution reduction plan. So Brian will introduce this. I'm just going to headline the information a little bit more before Brian, and we have a guest with us from Land Studies, Mr. Euler. Welcome. So before the board this evening are the feasibility studies prepared by Land Studies for 2 proposed streambank projects for inclusion in the township's pollution reduction plan. The proposed projects are along Goose Creek behind the Aldi Shopping Centre and in Barker Park. At the June 3rd, 2025 meeting, the board approved a proposal from Land Studies to complete this work. Brian has a chance to review the studies and they're ready for presentation this evening. So welcome Ben and Brian, fire away.
So just a little background on where we're at with Goose Creek and the Barker Park. We had a PRP TMDL plan prepared by HRG, which was approved by DEP back in the beginning of 2023. We had 2 projects in that report. One was a stream restoration through Barker Park, and one was a stream restoration of Goose Creek behind the Aldi. Excuse me. We engaged through a proposal process, Carroll Engineering, to do feasibility and look at the 2 sites. It was determined that there was wetlands adjacent to those streams, and at that point, the projects were put on hold due to the presence of the wetlands. And we were under the impression from previous meetings with DEP that those type of projects would not be approved and could not move forward. Fast forward to November of 2024, Ben Mueller came and presented to the CCE, where we meet typically here at the building with the Chester County Engineers Association, of which I'm a member, and he presented about stream restoration feasibility using floodplain reconnection. And it's a site that he presented and talked about was Kiva Flats, which is over in Exton. After that meeting, Chris Peterson was at that as well. Him and I talked about it. We approached Land Studies to get some cost estimates, and that's when I dropped to the board about looking at the 2 sites that we previously didn't think we could move forward with our PRP. And here we are today with Ben to present the findings of his feasibility studies to show you what we can potentially achieve at those 2 sites.
Very good.
With that, I'll turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Brian. And thanks for having me. I'm Ben Mueller, Land Studies. I've worked for Land Studies probably like 20 plus years. We've been in the business for 30, and we specialize in this kind of work. Stream restorations, niche kind of world that we live in. And so I'm excited to get involved with this. These feasibility studies. And just while I'm thinking of it, what Brian was saying, part of what also led to actually doing this was getting DP central office. We had a meeting with them, and they kind of assured that the presence of wetlands shouldn't be a drawback. Like it's not something that is a project killer. That was the regional office kind of approach back in the day. And yeah, traditionally that is kind of thought, hey, stay away from wetlands, you know, but this, when it's truly restoration and you're restoring, you're basically you're enhancing the wetlands that are there and creating a lot more. So like, that insurance that kind of helps, you know, get this thing going. So, I have a presentation that I'll go through here.
The opposite down.
There we go. Okay, so here we are, Westchester. Boom. The first site is Goose Creek at Turner Lane. And the other site it's an unnamed tributary to Forsyth Run at Barker Park. The Goose Creek site, it's you can see it's both parcels are, you know, entirely owned by the township. This is kind of a landlocked parcel here. Here's the Aldi. This is the West Coast Shopping Center. Here's a slide just to show you the stream a little bit better. You can kind of see it a little bit more without the tree cover. This is taken during the winter. Just for perspective, it's about 1,500 linear feet of stream. It comes from behind the West Coast Shop Center, across under Turner Lane, and then becomes very channelized and encroached upon after this. Looking back at what it was before, back in 1937, you can see this is what Westchester looked like. Bunch of farm fields. You can't really see where the stream is, but I have a feeling it was probably ditched along the property line. That was kind of a common thing, but then again, we didn't have the stormwater concentration that we have now. So there's a lot of differences with the land use, but you can see that 1937, so the forest that is out there is relatively new in the big scheme of things. The channel at Goose Creek, it's your typical conditions of it showing instability. It's in size, meaning it's down cut. It has high vertical banks that are actively eroding. Down at the lower end, it slams up against this, I think it's a like auto body shop. And there's flooding issues here too, where it jumps out and floods that whole facility. Just another shot of the instability. It's over wide in places. It's just, I mean, it's kind of a mess, and it's kind of crazy because it's way up in the high in the watershed too. So it's not a big drainage area, but I mean, we see this all the time. Once the stream down cuts, it kind of unzips. All that sediment's being eroded into the stream channel, along with any nutrients that are contained within it. Nitrogen, phosphorus especially. Second site is at Barker Park. It's an unnamed trip to Forsyth Run. This, I don't know if you can see the blue that just showed up. It's a relatively straight shot. Again, it's very similar drainage area size. It's a little bit steeper system. Looking back at history, I think it's kind of in the same spot it was. It's just there was no residential development, and it was probably, again, just a farm ditch to drain probably the wetlands that were there at some time, so they could be farmable. Eroding banks, it's incised. It's not as bad as the Goose Creek site, but some of the worst banks are probably like 2 to 3 feet high, where Goose Creek is 2 to 4 to even 5 in some spots. There's a bridge that provides access from parking lot to the rest of the park, and then that's a shot of the confluence with Forsyth Run. There's a lot of sediment in there that has been mobilized. Most of it's from Forsyth Run itself, but some of it is material that's been evacuated down the tributary and dumped in there, and it's kind of collecting at above that bridge on, is it West Town Way, I think it is. So, both these sites are impaired, and when I say that, it's a typical conditions we see a lot. You have this incision. Once the stream down cuts, hits something a little bit more resistant, then it starts eroding laterally, and then you have this constant incorporation of sediment, nutrients into the watershed, and loss of land too. So this is an impaired condition. You see this everywhere you go. There's this disconnection from a floodplain. That's the biggest thing why it's impaired. Meaning that like when we got flood flows are all trapped within these banks, and they're just ripping apart the banks with erosion. And when the flood flows do get high enough and get out, usually there's nothing stopping those flood flows. So it's just lack of access to a good floodplain. So it's not a natural condition. This is a natural condition. Back before people came and messed with the streams, the natural condition was more of like a stream wetland complex where the root zones were interacting with the groundwater. You had a lot of the valley bottoms weren't even like forested. It was more like mosaic of wetlands and streams where you kind of couldn't really tell the difference, and they weren't necessarily forested either. It was more like a herbaceous and shrub, which that's, you know, a good reason for that is the presence of beaver. Back in the day, there was beaver everywhere, and they knew exactly what to do, populate the valleys. They had it all taken care of, and everything was very stable. But it was usually too wet for a lot of the forests to grow, and that's a big misconception. There's just like thought that like valley bottoms and forested wetlands are the best, highest quality situation, but the research is telling us it's not necessarily the case. I mean, yeah, there was trees, but it wasn't like a densely forested system. They just couldn't, their root zones were, they couldn't get deep enough, and it was too wet a lot of times. So what can we do to fix this? I want to use the term restoration, and when we talk about it, it's a return of an ecosystem, the closest approximation of the condition prior to the disturbances you can get. There's a big difference between restoration and, say, stabilization. A lot of times, stabilization is something that it's more of a situation where you don't have a lot of space, and it's like grading back the banks, creating a bench sometimes. Usually is a better situation, a better approach for like urban areas where you just don't have space to work with. But the problem is it doesn't have the longevity that restoration has. You're relying on, because you don't have the width and you don't have the space for the flood flows to spread out, it's still putting a lot of pressure on the repairs that you make. So there's a high risk of failure with these, and usually needing some kind of like armoring, which is expensive, unnatural, and such. But so when we talk about restoration, I'm kind of grouping in two types: reconnection and restoration. It probably are interchangeable. I'm just, for the sake of like discussion purposes, I'm going to call reconnection when we actually raise the channel up to match an abandoned floodplain. So the stream is cut down, left the floodplain high and dry. The approach here would be raising the channel up to provide access. It's a little bit less disturbance because you're not like taking a huge swath, you're just kind of like focused on the channel. As opposed to restoration, where you would like cut the floodplain down. We would only do this in a situation where it makes sense, that when we know that the original valley bottom before people came along was at a lower elevation, and a lot of post-settlement deposition has happened in the valley to bury it, basically. Or you're in a situation where you can't be flooding people out, because like the old idea of reconnecting the floodplain is to get the stream to spread out, access a floodplain. The idea is to have a low flow depth across a wide area, lower flow depth, lower shear stress, lower erosion. So there's these two kind of different approaches, and different situations call for different measures. In general here, this connection idea, here's like basically a gully. It wrote a ditch, it abandoned its floodplain. Here's after a restoration, it was filled to match, and now it has that access. Before, like, it had, a couple feet, now it has like 20, 25. Notice there's no stream channel in there. A lot of these steeper systems, there's no business for a channel to even be in the valley, and it's a result of being ditched intentionally, or like a gully forming and unzipping. Here's a project down in Maryland where it's the same exact situation, a little bit bigger scale, but still not that huge of a system. A gully just unzipped. It was about, you can see me there in that picture, it's way over my head. We filled up the valley bottom, attached it to the floodplain. That was like right after construction. Notice all the wood, so like there was the clearing that was necessary to do the project. You just leave all the wood in place and creates this roughness within the floodplain. And this is like a year later. There it is. Oops. I think I'm delayed. There we go. Yeah, so this is like a year later, same site. So there's a little bit of rebound. First, you know, it takes a little bit to get that vegetation to get established, but within a growing season, definitely 2 growing seasons, you're in good shape with full vegetated cover. So the restoration approach is a little, the other approach is to cut the floodplain down. So here we have, you know, this incised situation. There's a disconnect from the floodplain. The old floodplain, before people came, pre-settlement, is buried. The root zones are, you know, not really attached to the groundwater. The idea is to cut it down and reconnect everything, really kind of expand the hyperrheic zone, which is that interface between groundwater and surface water, across the whole floodplain width. There's usually, you know, basal gravels are usually below the old buried floodplain, and that's like a conduit for the groundwater to be all throughout that like, you know, that water table elevation. This is just a close-up of it, of a typical bank, where we have an abandoned flood, or actually the floodplain was here. At one point, the stream was up there, and it has downcut to where it is now. You have thick accumulations of fine-grained sediment over top of that black buried floodplain layer and the basal gravel underneath that.
Just to be clear, the proposal that you're presenting to us, you're recommending restoration as opposed to stabilization?
Yes. Yep. Which I'm getting to. Here's a couple pictures of like a floodplain restoration approach where we cut the floodplain down. There's a base flow channel, and I say base flow, meaning that like as soon as it starts raining, it gets out of there and starts expanding across the floodplain. This is a tributary to the same channel there. You can see there's water all throughout the vegetation. There's another example, bigger system. Notice that the stream, you can't really tell the difference between stream and inundated pockets. But the whole valley bottom, the whole floodplain surface would be this wetland complex. And notice the wood that's in there. Here's one that's more familiar to people. This is Lineville Run and Kiva Flats. Same situation, we cut this floodplain down to, and it's sized for like a 100-year storm. It's actually bigger than a 100-year storm. In this case, it was treating their stormwater, so it was a stormwater management BMP for the development of the additional units that they put in. This is a year after construction. I'm sure everybody that's been driving past this for a year has been like, why is this like this complete pond, no growth? We finished late in the winter, so it was tough to get the vegetation established last year. It happens depending when you finish it. Ideally, you get an early start in spring and have a lot of the growing season for the site to turn green. It's finally getting there. Just looking upstream. Again, there is a base flow channel that we built, but it's very, very small, and the idea is that there's these wetland pockets, inundated pockets that the stream's flowing in and out of, and it's just this like complex of stream and wetland. So why do we do this? There's a multitude of benefits that this brings, you know, from biodiversity to sediment storage, and just the fact that you're getting rid of erosion right away by the grading that happens, habitat, nitrogen processing, all sorts of stuff. It's a very complex relationship between all these things, and you know, this complexity is a good thing because it makes the ecosystem's very resilient, and when you have resilience, you have sustainability, and sustainability is very attractive for a lot of different project drivers, such as mitigation if you need it, stormwater management, like I said with Lineville Run was a stormwater management situation. This is a different one out in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, where all these units, I mean, this is a massive like campus. All stormwater for this entire campus is managed in the floodplain itself, and they didn't have to do the traditional basin, detention basins. And because they didn't have to do that, they got a couple more units in, which is kind of no-brainer in terms of the developer in this situation. So there's a lot of things going on here. But what we're here to talk about is the pollutant load reductions. And so we looked at each site, we documented, it was a visual assessment. This is conceptual stage, this is very cursory kind of thing, so, but it's a kind of get in there, get a good feel for what's going on, look at the level of instability, try to understand the stratigraphy, what you see in the banks, general causes of instability, and then kind of come up with a game plan for potential restoration approaches. And the idea is to first justify that it needs restoration, but then also kind of come up with a solution for it. And like I said, conceptual stage, but the whole point is to see if these projects, if we were to do restoration, would be feasible for helping the township meet their pollution load reductions.
Can I stop you right there for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Because I know a lot of folks may not know this or be familiar with it, but for the record, what kind of pollution are you talking about? It's not like we have oil or anything like that, or chemicals.
Yeah.
These are not, those kind of sites. So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What pollution?
So sediment itself, dirt in the stream, and then the nutrients that are usually attached to the sediment. So mainly nitrogen and phosphorus. Those are the big drivers for the PRP plan. So the plans that all municipalities are required to reduce these types of pollutants in their waterways by a certain amount, by a certain timeline. So municipalities are on the hook for this, and as frustrating as that is, this really is a good way to handle all those reductions in one shot, basically. Otherwise, you're looking at a lot more piecemeal stuff, a lot of upland BMPs, which are definitely good things, absolutely good things, but a lot of times you're kind of shoehorning a lot of like upland BMPs, rain garden here, infiltration basin there, you street sweeping, all these kind of things go into counting for that PRP plan. But stream projects, if you find the right spot and you do it right, you can kind of take care of your reduction requirements all in one shot without and doing something really good and sustainable and comprehensive.
So what's your debate about putting nitrogen and the other stuff? Why is that such a terrible thing?
Yeah. So So the habitat that lives in the stream, all the little critters, the fish, they can't, with too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus, they can't breathe, basically. Okay. It sucks the oxygen out.
Through the man-made efforts, it's creating changes in the environment, killing off the fish,
yes,
and everything else.
And you get these like algae blooms, which then suck all the oxygen out of the water.
Okay, gotcha. Now, why is it that the township has to be worried about that? Do we have some kind of a mandate or something like that? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so like everybody, all municipalities have this MS4 permit, where it's a federal rule that the states mandate, right? And
I can
go for it. Yeah, Brian, you probably can do it.
I was going to elaborate on MS4 in my report tonight. So the MS4 program is the municipal separate stormwater system. It's a federally mandated program from the EPA that the state of Pennsylvania, the PADEP, administers in the state. And we, as West Goshen Township, we've been in the program now for, I believe, 15 years. We're on our third permit cycle that I'm aware of. The permit's valid for 5 years. We are mandated by our density of our township and our location to do an annual, to come up with projects that will reduce the sediment load, because we are in what's called a TMDL, our total maximum daily load. We have an allocation that we're allowed to, quote, release. And I was going to report on this in more detail for my report, but we are required by our permit to reduce the sediment flowing from West Goshen Township by 390,894 pounds per year. So that's a lot of sediment. I'll get into further detail later in my report about where we stand in our projects, and because we just filed our annual report at the end of September, so I'm making my report annual, what we've done this year. That is a requirement. We have a permit. The permit was issued in September 1st, 2024, expires September 1st, 2029. So with 5 years, we have 5 years to be implementing these projects and documenting what we're doing. Then we'll have to apply again in 2029 for another renewal.
So what happens if we don't do all? Suppose we just say, well, we're not gonna do it, we don't bother.
Do you want to be the first guinea pig for the DEP to come after you? You can do
Okay,
that.
well,
You have to, because DEP has enforcement. They can enforce it and they can fine. I do know of one township that got audited and fined, which was Manor Township in Lancaster County. They paid several $100,000, I believe.
How much was it?
Several $100,000.
Usually $10,000 per day per infraction.
So they paid a lot of money when they got audited and they didn't provide. There's a lot to it. It's a public court case and they got audited. I think it went to the EPA took it to court over it. But they ended up, I think, settling but spending a lot of money to update a lot of things in the township.
Bottom line, this is something we had to do.
It's a mandate, yes.
Since we're on contamination, it's kind of a question for both of you. I know if the soil is contaminated, it's going to be about, well, two questions regarding that. If we find something else, contamination-wise, because we know there was upgradient problems years ago, TSH and various other things, how are we going to deal with that? As far as, I see there's soil removal, which is 30 to 40% more potentially as a result of contamination, but the groundwater is very shallow there. The groundwater is very shallow, so I guess we'd have to deal with the groundwater somehow too, or are we not addressing that? Because we have to, once we find it.
So this is my understanding of the nature of the contaminants upgrading.
Right, upgrading.
Is it's stuff that gets in,
Sinkers.
like goes deep.
Yeah, there's sinkers.
Yeah, like and you can, like the plume around the contamination source was much more superficial, but as you get further away, it's much deeper.
Exactly.
I think
like 6 foot.
Yeah. So like we wouldn't be. I mean, first of all, I think what would need to be done, like would be to kind of set up the wells that I know that was kind of like on the docket for after we get through this, if it's even feasible, that go do the monitoring along that property boundary just to confirm.
Do geo.
Yeah, and if it is there, like, I mean, there's ways around it. Like if you keep the soil on site, it's better than exporting. Once you start exporting it, then you got all sorts of stuff. And plus it's expensive just to export anyway. Right. So like, I mean, what I would recommend in this situation, what we kind of assume for this feasibility is that all excavated material would stay on site. Actually, in this situation, like like a floodplain would be down in here. You could flip the material right adjacent to it, fill the old channel in spots, kind of do away with this crazy bend that it takes that's causing some flooding here. And you could then repurpose it to be like a meadow and be like usable park kind of land if you wanted to, with trail or whatever. But the idea would be to leave it on site. My gut is that it's not. I think the contamination is going to be deeper, and I think we wouldn't be cutting enough material to like tap into.
Well, that would be my concern, especially if you're putting geo in, then
right.
You potentially could be causing further contamination right. and expanding the plume at that point. So that's my concern, and
right.
then
which is valid, definitely.
And if we do that, or if we do find contamination in the geo probe or whatever we do to find that out, determine pure samples, my concern is that then we have to clean it up. And you can't, once you find the information, you have to clean it up with DEP. So my second half is, I know, and you probably can't answer this, but I know we had a conversation with DEP, very lengthy on the phone regarding this topic, and I know that they took responsibility for it and will continue to do that. So I'm assuming the 30 or 40% extra cost potentially, if it is there, will be borne by DEP, or should we have a conversation with DEP about this, or get them involved, because they did say they take responsibility for it.
I think that definitely, yeah, I mean, what I'm doing is just kind of saying, hey, it's feasible to do the floodplain restoration, but I think, yeah, I mean, there would have to be conversation with DEP to how that that is handled. That,
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're doing, but these
Yeah.
are just concerns and looking at the big picture where we
Yeah.
could potentially could be that I want to plan for it ahead of time.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, what you would be doing is kind of creating this big wetland system would actually, you know, you're treating a lot of contaminants, and if you picture the near surface groundwater, it's way up here. The deep contamination zone is way down deeper. It's like it's kind of disconnected from that near surface groundwater,
Right.
the saturation zone. So I think my gut is that the results of the testing
At the surface where you
that
are.
would be like nothing at that surface within that, you know, that first 4 or 5 feet or something. Who knows, maybe there is some down deep, but
Because I think the
fractions.
closest well was 150 feet from the stream that had contamination in it above state levels at the 6-foot depth.
Right, just
And I remember
to the north,
study,
right?
To the
Yeah,
north,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So it's close.
Right,
Like,
that's what I mean, that's why I'm asking this.
absolutely, yeah.
potential.
So, you know, I think those steps have to be taken. I think you have, like Carol's kind of like set up to do the study for that, right? Like, but.
I didn't see that in there, were they?
Carol has the staff and the capability to do the study. We didn't want to do it at this stage. We just wanted the feasibility to see if it was feasible. If we want to move forward with looking at doing the restoration and reconnection at Turner Lane, we would then engage Carol to do the
Site assessment, okay.
Geotech work.
Geoprobe and all that, okay.
But
Thank
we didn't
you.
go that far at this stage. We wanted to see if Ben came back and said, you go to floodplain, we might get 10,000 pounds of sediment out of it. It's not going to work. It's not going to be worth your while. I'll let him finish his presentation because he has more in his presentation to tell you how worthwhile these projects are for our PRP plan.
Okay, so yeah, like, so the idea would be to create this floodplain channel system, wetlands, and then.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
Can you go back to that one slide you just had? Now would one of the effects of this restoration here, creating a floodplain, contain the water from these 100-year storms we seem to be happening more and more frequently, especially because further down here, downstream, is Montgomery Avenue, where we experience severe flooding.
Yeah, all right.
And that really
Yeah.
becomes a problem for our EMS, for example, going up to Chester County Hospital and so forth. Would that help reduce the volume of the water hitting that particular area?
So this is, in this situation, because we're so high in the watershed, and it would be a pretty significant size project, floodplain with it high in the watershed, we would, I guarantee we would have some level peak rate reduction. You gotta be careful though, like, I mean, I don't wanna say it would completely reduce flooding because the issues are complicated downstream because of just misaligned crossings, undersized crossings. Sometimes all it takes is just one big tree to just come down and get jammed up on the, you know, upstream side of the culvert, and now you got everything flooded. So it's not like I'd say it would help reduce localized flooding, like especially right in this area, especially this place right here. And it might have an effect on downstream. I guarantee it would reduce peak rate because we're allowing for more infiltration, and storage, and time of concentration, all that kind of stuff. Unless infrastructure is changing downstream, I don't know if you can like straight up like.
Well, we're looking at that too. We're looking to change
In
that.
combination, there you go. Like, I mean, that like. And that's what, like, we're always asked, like, is this going to reduce flooding? It's like yes and no kind of thing. You know, there's certain things that have to happen for it to really be effective. Localized flooding, like a perfect example is a golf course. Like, if they allow you to do, if there's greens and floodplains are always just getting, or fairways and greens and stuff are always getting flooded, and they allow you to have enough space to do something substantial, 100-year storm, whatever, within the floodplain, now, you know, those features aren't getting flooded anymore, and but that's like directly adjacent, or like people's backyards that are right up to a site, like say the Barker Park site. you know, when it gets up out of that stream channel and starts going on the floodplain, it usually doesn't stop, and that's when people's like backyards or basements get flooded and stuff. If you allow that, you create a volume and increase that, or if you restore the floodplain, increase the volume of storage, you would, in theory, drop the 100-year flood surface, and people can realize benefits there. So there's, I mean, that localized, very like adjacent flood reduction is a very real thing. Just to visualize this in cross-section form, like looking downstream, it's a little hard to see, but the existing ground is like right there, about like 2 to 3 feet higher. So it's basically just cutting it down, flipping the material on the sides, and creating a channel system with wetland pockets and such like that. Interesting enough with the Goose Creek site, we just finished not that long ago a big watershed action plan for Goose Creek Alliance. It kind of like doing the feasibility study only on a watershed-wide scale. So we walked all the lengths of stream in the whole watershed and identified, potential good restoration sites, identified problem areas, and the Goose Creek site we ranked it without even knowing that it was even in the PRP plan. I had no idea when we did this. It was one of the few, like, in the red where we were like, this is a very high potential site. So the fact that it was in the PRP plan to begin with, that's awesome that it was identified, because it is a good site. And I'll get to this in a second after comparing Barker Park. Let me just go through this real quick. Barker Park is same kind of deal. Create the floodplain, flip the soil over to the side. You could keep it mowed grass, or you could keep it upland meadow, whatever you want to do. Here, cross-section form would be, I think when I hold the laser in, it like sucks its batteries or something. I don't know. Go to the next one there, Ryan. Okay. Same kind of deal here, where it's just press, no channel. I don't think doing any kind of channel would make sense here, because it's a little bit steeper, and the moment you start making channel, more risk there is to rilling. The comparison here, this is what it comes down to right now. So Goose Creek versus Barker Park. Construction costs aren't that much different. I mean, total project costs aren't that much different. I mean, you're looking at the same costs for design and permitting, same for construction administration, which that's like the bid documents, bid phase stuff. Construction's kind of in the same neighborhood. Because they're similar size projects, similar amount of excavation, and the load reductions are similar. But I forget how much you need with your
390,000.
390,000 pounds of sediment. Yeah. Well, at least this you do both to make a good chunk of it. Yeah. But if you think about this, like how much, like a bunch of rain gardens, how much that generates. I mean, you're talking a lot, and you're trying to find places to put them. Here you got sites that are owned by the township already, and it's doable. If I had to choose one, Goose Creek is the better site, as long as the contamination's not a problem. But if that can be put to bed, the Goose Creek one stands out to me, just because it's a little bit, it's flatter, first of all, it's less risk. And the steeper you get, the more risk it is for having issues. Not that bad. I mean, we've done way steeper, so and everything's been fine. So it's not. I wouldn't say it's off the table because of that. But if I had to pick one, it would be the Goose Creek site. And also because there's opportunity there. This whole thing with the Goose Creek Watershed Action Plan that we did for the Goose Creek Alliance, we got grant money to do that, and there's a task left there that we haven't tapped into yet. That's already been funded to do a preliminary design for the best site. And like when we put that whole scope together for that grant, I didn't want to even go there because it's too preliminary. It's like looking at things at a broad level with conceptual stuff. And but DP was like, we want, you know, like an actual design, like deliverable. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll put in preliminary design. There's a lot that has to be discussed with that Goose Creek Watershed Action Plan. A lot of players involved, West Goshen, West Town, the borough. But my thought is if you guys are way out in front with this than the other townships and borough. If this was the one you want to do, there's opportunity that that preliminary design task could be done underneath an already funded, you know, project and chip away at this number at least. You know, like I'd say you could probably reduce that in half, you know. And now that becomes a lot more palatable for the design and permitting, whether the township can fund that directly or, you know, go after grant money or whatever. But in the big picture, if you think about it, like you got to, you know, to get grant money, you got to have, you know, there needs to be match put into it, and all the stakeholders and the skin in the game need to kind of put a bit in there. Design costs, especially half of that, would be an awesome match for construction funding. Like, and so like sometimes, you know, a municipality doesn't want to pay for the design permit, goes for grants to pay for design permitting. That's a whole year, and then a whole year for the design to happen, and then you're talking like 3-year period before, well, 4-year, because you're getting like 2 grant rounds, design permitting, and then another grant round for construction. Here it's kind of like you could accelerate the whole process because it's kind of dovetailing with this other study that we did. And
we have to use that grant money. We have to use that grant money within a certain period of time.
Yeah, usually it's like a 5-year period. I mean, they're all different.
Where are we into that now? How many years are we into it where we start to use the money?
Well, you don't have to use any. I mean, the grant money that paid for the watershed action plan, that's good for another couple years, I think. Okay. So we're good with that. And we've just been kind of sitting on finishing the scope of that because we wanted to. I mean, there's a lot to talk, a lot of stakeholder discussions to figure out what site to go at. And because I'm like, we can't be just like going and designing a random site. Like, think about it and be like, make a good decision before we just go designing something to make it worthwhile. You know what I mean? That's why I didn't like the idea of actually including that in that scope. But you know, it also helped us get the grant money from DP. So we're like, okay, we'll do it. But so it's just sitting there waiting for a site to be picked, I guess you would call it. And there's a lot of good sites. I mean, there's 5 or 6 like really like high potential sites. But here's one of them in your township. It's already in your PRP plan, and you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And it shows this partnership kind of thing. That whole idea of this whole watershed action plan is to engage the townships and show, you know, cooperation. It's like, so it kind of, I mean, I'm making that pitch just because it seems like it makes a lot of sense to me. It's just, we got, the big catch is the contamination thing. So if we can show that it's not contaminated, I think you got a good site to move forward with, in my opinion.
Ben, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
So, you know, Goose Creek, if we do this section, if we do this restoration of this particular section here behind the Aldi property, I mean, would it then become a trap for the fact that upstream of this site, we'd be bringing in and depositing sediment that's being washed down from all these other problem areas upstream, and it's just we're going to pay a lot of money, create channels and create all this, and then it's going to get filled in within 5-10 years because it's now a depository for all this sediment that's coming in from upstream. Is that going to happen? So
that's a good question. That's a frequently asked question. Yes, there's sediment coming in from upstream because it's unstable up, like it starts basically behind West Goshen Shopping Center. But a lot of the bigger stuff, the cobbly, gravellier stuff, can't get through the culvert at Turner Lane. So it's the finer stuff that would be coming in. And the whole purpose of one of the functions of the floodplain is to be a sediment sink on purpose. So you're not only are you eliminating the erosion and the source of sediment from the site itself by doing that, you're actually allowing a lot of that find sediment to deposit within the floodplain in a more of like, because it's in the suspended load, you have all that vegetation, it's almost like a filter, and it falls out evenly across the whole width of the floodplain. So for it to fill in, it would take millennia, you know, like it would be a long time. Like,
so you're saying that we wouldn't be obligating ourselves to have to reconfigure this every 10, 20 years because of this fine sediment settling out and disrupting what it's intended to do.
It would be part of its function. There are some projects where we have a crazy sediment supply that is, you know, it has to be managed, and we try to encourage that stuff to dump out at the upstream end of the site, so you can, if you need to hog it out, you can go in one spot, hog it out, so you're not trying to get rid of that deposition from your nice wetlands through the whole thing. We actually, like, so Lineville Run at Kiva Flats, we purposely created like obstructions to kind of misdirect the incoming flows to allow the sediment to flow out. We know there's a lot of coarse ground.
Would you do that for this location, do you think?
I don't think there's as much of a need, to be honest, because we don't have that gravelly, cobbly source coming in. That's the problem stuff that actually...
Would that be something that would be confirmed during the design phase?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah. It's like what we did, I mean, with the conceptual stuff, we figure out, based on slope, width, we figure out, I mean, what we want to do is come up with a width that would be stable. And that's based on slope, based on, you know, the vegetative cover and stuff like that. So we actually went out and we measured the slope, not just from, you know, the contours you get online, but we actually went out and surveyed it to make sure we could get an accurate slope. Then you run a bunch of numbers. I mean, it's preliminary, of course, but I mean, it gives us a good idea. We can feel like, okay, this is how wide we need to be stable.
Okay, a couple other questions. So the overall cost of this project, you're looking at these 600, 700,000 range, is your estimate, right? How does that stack up in terms of a value for that cost per pounds of sediment and other pollutant reductions? Is it in the middle of a range? Is it at a high end of what's typical? Is it at a low end? What is your experience on dollars per pound of sediment removed?
I think it's in the middle to low, because I think most of what we've seen in the past, like by the time you design a rain garden here, a rain garden there, infiltration but there, you know, all these piecemeal kind of things, you go through all the motions of that design, construction, and then maintenance on top of it. All of that, it comes in to be like we do have studies on this, and I should probably have brought that, but and I can provide that too. Like there's a lot of studies that we've had with past projects and municipalities that it's showing that doing this, it's the most bang for your buck when you do it this way. Yeah, it's more it seems like it's more right away. The idea that these things are very low maintenance. It's, you know, really once you get the native vegetation to come in, I mean, you're looking at like spot spraying for invasive species. You know, like and you can, and if you're on top of that, it's like, you know, a couple $1,000s a year instead of like, you know, having to, I don't know, the maintenance associated with rain gardens is a lot more than that, that's for sure. You know what I mean?
And then follow-up question, so you've got a, you know, fairly specific number in terms of pounds of removal. How sensitive is that number going to be to the detail design? Are you going to come back and do detail design and say, you know what, it's only 50,000 pounds? So
I went with more of a conservative number, just based purely on stream length, not anything else. What they call the default rates, and that's, I mean, Brian can probably explain that better too, but like there's these default rates that you're allowed to use. And I forget what your PRP used. Was it
44.8?
Yeah, and was that, so your PRP used default rates, right? And that's typical for a PRP plan because you don't know, you're not like, things are very broad. So I just stuck with that. Now there's these protocols you could follow to like do things in much more detail, and there's a good chance that the load reductions will increase if, you know, but I didn't want to give you high numbers, too high.
So probability-wise, you're saying 75% that it's likely to be a higher number, or 25% that it could be a lower number? Am I'm just giving you a number, you can say no to it.
I don't know, let's say 50% chance that it's going to be higher. Maybe 75 chance. 75%.
75 is good, 50, because that means 50% could be lower, right? So.
No, 50% chances it could be higher.
Okay.
Yeah. Or 75.
Other questions?
Yeah, either way, I think it's going to be higher. But we went with this. I don't think it's going to be low. It's definitely not going to be lower than this. This is like the.
That's good to hear.
It won't be lower. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
From start to finish, how long would this project, say, for Goose Creek take?
Okay, so the design and permitting phase can be a year. I mean, you need like 6 months to 8 months for permit review time. We can do the design as fast as we can pull off. So about a year to a year and a half at the most. And then there's a period of time, like if you take all the pausing for grant applications and getting awarded, it's, I'd say, design permit a year, the bid phase a couple months, and then construction would probably be like, for a project this size, would probably be like 3 months. So, talking like 2 years total. But then if you have to go get grant money, then you got to wait a whole year to know if you got the grant. So, you know, like, and that's why I was kind of getting at the whole idea of like killing two birds with one stone with the preliminary design under another effort, and makes
the design cost, I'm speaking for myself now, board members, the design cost to me is not a barrier, it's the construction cost, where you might want to go get a grant to lower it. So, you know, spending $60,000 on a design, assuming you can supplement it with the one you've already got from the grant.
Yep.
You know, it's a feasible project to just do in 2026, in my opinion. We do have this, this is something I want to ask you, we have this culvert under Montgomery Avenue, which we will be replacing. That project is still in making sure we secure the maximum number of grants we can for it, but it's likely to go into design phase next year with a build in 27. Reasonable?
It's going to depend on hearing about our application with PennDOT, which is contingent on the budget impasse that currently exists.
So assuming that ultimately ends, we're not here forever, would this project need to wait for that culvert project to be done? Is it independent of it completely? I know it's just a little bit further downstream, but...
It's independent, yeah.
Okay, so let's ignore that then. We'll say it's independent, and to me, we could be enough, possibly do design work on this and get to a bid phase by assuming the permit process goes okay, by the end of next year. And then then the board at that point would say, are we going to fund it or are we going to wait for grants in terms of the construction phase?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my view. Of board, you speak up if you have different opinions.
That was my question. What's the next step you would recommend? Do you recommend us going into the design phase at this point?
I would say get the contamination thing figured out first. And I don't know how fast that happens, but then yeah, I mean, if you were interested, then it would be design phase. And I mean, that's what, like, the reason why we do this conceptual phase first is to kind of guide that decision. So, because too often people say, no, we don't want to conceptual, dive right in design, it's like the wrong site, you know, or just, you know, here, it's like, I feel good about the Goose Creek site. I mean, contamination side, you know, hopefully there's not, but like, if there's no issues there, it's a good site. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be the next step, and especially if you can fund it, you're not waiting for a grant to pay for design. That's big right there, and then you show that's match for the construction. You know what I mean? And
they don't count it. I don't think. I think once you've spent the money, when you apply for a grant, there's history at that point. You still have to have a match for the construction phase.
Yeah, well, I know the growing greener, I believe you can use the design for the match, I think.
Every grant we get, we always, if you've sunk the cost, it's gone.
Okay.
To the chairman's point, every single time we've gone for an application, we can't use any real work that's been completed prior to the award being announced. In fact, we were on the Montgomery Avenue project that he referenced, we were advised not to start anything until we heard about the award from PennDOT.
I wonder, it depends on the program, the grant program, I think, and the.
Well,
Just I have two questions for Ben. Given that there is the potential for the contamination at Goose Creek, would it make sense to advance Barker Park first, because while we're doing the contamination study? That's question one, and question two goes back to our PRP plan, is you and I spoke earlier today. What do we have to do as a township, you're aware of what we're going to do with DEP in order to amend our PRP?
I'll answer the first one, the second one first. Because you already called out these projects as in your PRP, and you called out stream restoration, you'd only need to amend it and change it or resubmit or whatever if you just completely change your type and location, you know? So you already have locations, and basically it's the same type, you know? Even though the approach might be different from what was in there, you're good, you're good. And the consensus is, from talking to people at my office that are experts on that, the whole atmosphere thing, my wife who's an expert on it, they said, don't even talk to DP about it. Like, that's opening a can of worms that you probably don't even want to, like, go towards. Like, that shouldn't be an issue whatsoever with that.
If you take that approach and then they ultimately say we reject your PRP reduction, you've sunk all this money, now you've not even got the reduction you were supposed to get.
You would just have to then, if the worst case is that you would have to just revise your PRP plan and resubmit it, and it's
okay. So
yeah,
Another 6 months.
it's not a big deal.
we could still get the credit ultimately.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Um,
All right, so at this point, we've spent quite a lot of time on this subject. So is there any key points you have left, or any key questions you need to answer?
Answer that other question. I think with, advancing Barker Park, so the difference with the overall time frame is that Goose Creek, I have this task in another project sitting there ready to have a preliminary design that needs to be in Goose Creek watershed. So Barker Park's not in the Goose Creek watershed, it's in Chester Creek, I guess it is. So you could move forward with it, definitely. I mean, but that whole thing with like combining the preliminary design scope from another project to help with it, it wouldn't apply to Barker Park, unfortunately, because it's a different watershed.
The study won't take that long in terms of,
Yeah, it wouldn't.
it'll take that long.
That's fiscal good.
And Carol
It's
can
not
do it,
within
right?
2 months.
Just start.
So I think there's three. What I'm hearing is three next steps here. I'm just summarize it and see if Brian and Ben, you agree with this. So we've got an opportunity to move one of these projects forward in 2026. We could certainly budget, Chris, for the design work to be done for Goose Creek. We would want to liaise with you around how much you have left in your grant, and whether that would be something you would be able to secure against the cost, so that we don't have to budget the full $100,000 that's expected. Also, we need a budget for a first quarter environmental assessment, geo assessment from our engineer to review the issue or concern that we have about potential groundwater contamination, and hopefully confirm that it's deep enough and not spread enough on the site that it would impact this project. So if we get that done in the first quarter, we potentially be authorizing design work by the second quarter. Okay. And then the third thing was, well, yeah, maybe.
Well, I think the best course of action is to budget for the design work and do the environmental assessment in the first quarter, and then evaluate from there. I think as it relates to the work from Carroll Engineering, Brian, please feel free to disagree, but I think we can just ask Carroll Engineering to update their proposal that was previously presented back in June.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with Carol for the proposal and the cost.
And what we could do is maybe try and get that in front of the board in one of the meetings in December, and then that way we can sort of kick it off at the beginning of the year.
Is Carol the best, Carol the best party to do the site assessment? I mean, are they used to that? Or I know GDS and a lot of the companies.
They have a geotechnical department.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that they were doing that kind of work. Okay.
So there is one outstanding question here for me, and again, I don't think anyone in this room can answer it, is once we go and start sampling, and we've had this conversation with DEP about potential contamination on this property before we acquired it, and they assured us that assuming the contamination that was found, if we were to do any further sampling, was the same as what has been identified by the Superfund site on Turner Lane, not Turner Lane, on whatever it is. That the responsible party there would be held accountable for any information that we got. I don't know what rights they have with respect to whatever data we collect that shows it's their contamination, that then opens them up to potentially some further cost issues with PADP about the current situation, which is just a monitoring only cleanup, well, not cleanup, monitoring only status for that site. So I don't know what kind of hornet's nest we're going to start poking around, doing our own sampling and then reporting that data to DEP.
And
So
they did
someone
get
needs to advise us legally on what that is.
Yeah, and they did get closure, legally got closure from DEP. Because I looked at that, the site closure was all done about 3-4 years ago. So that's, a problem because now.
Kind of opening up.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that with with the closure from an environmental standpoint. So.
I don't know enough about that. I don't know anything.
So I don't think anyone in this room could answer it, but it's a concern that I have that we need an answer to. So somewhere along the line, we're going to have a conversation with DEP.
Environmental attorney.
Before we sample, whoever we use. Okay. Is there any questions from anyone on the board? Is there anyone here who has a question? Just to the lady at the back, if you wouldn't mind stating your name, please.
Sure, I'm Brittany Shinsta. The two biggest differences I see between the two sites is the one near Turner Lane is a very commercialized area, and I don't believe there's a lot of access for community members. However, at Barker Park, it's a very residential area. There's a park, there's summer camps. My kids have played in that creek for years, and there's a lot of community activities there at that park, and I feel like the community would really benefit from the revival of those wetlands and the native plantings and the facilitation of wildlife, etc. So is that going to be considered in the decision of which site will be developed?
I mean, I think there's a huge benefit for both sites, to be honest. I mean, that's already a park, so people are used to using it, so it's kind of, I guess, a little bit more low-hanging fruit for that kind of those educational aspects. But I would say that the other one, I don't know, there's no reason you couldn't have like a trail, like connect. I mean, there's that having connectivity through there from that residential area to the commercial area without having to walk out on Paoli Pike, like there could be a lot of benefit there too. Any one of these projects that we do, I think a trail of some kind is always a good thing. It doesn't have to be like a full-on ADA accessible. It could be something primitive, but just like kind of like hugging the edge of our grading area and a couple educational signs, and then you got that. It doesn't take a lot to just bring that whole recreational side of things to the table. So I think Goose Creek has a lot of promise for that, actually. But yeah, I think Barker Park's already kind of use that.
How people would necessarily access that.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting when I looked at the book. If you could go to the sheet that shows the actual concept, the township owns a piece of land just north of where this is proposed. And theoretically, we could convert that into a public parking spot. I'm just.
Are you talking like that bit right there?
Yeah, right there. Yeah. So we're not saying anything about what could, will be done. We're just saying theoretically, to the point that was made, there is potentially ways to make this an accessible trail. And pop out at Aldi or whatever and do some shopping at the same time. So to your point about Barker Park, though, Brian indicated the timeline for our current permit goes through 2029. So what I heard tonight really was about the board wanting to get its feet wet on doing one of these restoration projects for a stream. We've never done one of these before in this township, so we've got an opportunity to do it at a little lower cost by trying to use the Goose Creek grant money that's available. So that's why I think we lean towards doing this one first. Ultimately, if this was a successful project, later in this permit cycle, we could well be moving on to Barker Park because we need the pollutant reductions, the sediment reductions to meet our permit commitments. So it could happen, but probably later. Doug?
Yes, would a stabilization meet the MS4 and be cheaper and would work?
All right, so that's a good question, very good question. Sometimes yeah, sometimes no. So it depends on how you go about it. You can't just slip back banks and armor it. You know, they do not count that for MS4. It has to be some kind of level of like a floodplain bench kind of feature, and then you have to prove that it's going to be stable up to a certain size So
are stabilizations and restorations like defined differently? And so would a stabilization not meet the permit? Or would it?
Sometimes it just barely does. So,
barely does?
Yes.
But a restoration definitely meets it?
Definitely meets it, yeah.
And what's the cost difference between a stabilization and a restoration?
So usually stabilization is cheaper up front, but there's usually it's if you're not sizing it for a big, huge, large event, you run the risk of it being damaged, wiped out, or having to redo it basically. You know what I mean? So
So
I know it seems like it's a far off risk, but it happens all the time.
A restoration would last longer?
Yes. Yeah.
And so it might be more cost effective because it lasts longer.
You got it.
It meets the permit.
You got it. That's it right there. I mean, it's just the longevity without having to redo anything.
Okay, and it meets the permit.
Stabilization, there's just higher risk of failure, and they do fail. And at some point, it's got to be redone. You know what I mean? So it adds up quick when you start looking at that. Like, I mean, yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Quick question. With the waterways that go through residential areas or that are owned by residents, 1210 Eagle Road, our neighbors, is experiencing significant erosion, and it's starting to get worse. And there's actually been a few times where we smelled gas, but I don't know if it's applicable here, but it is something that you should be aware of. It's starting to erode pretty quickly.
There's a stormwater management issue on some private property, but you're smelling gas. Have you reported that?
No.
Is the property owner aware of the people who believe they're smelling gas odor?
Yeah, they're aware of it. The guy who owns that home is actually also renting it to folks there. He does barely anything to manage the property.
Well, that's concerned that there's a smell of gas odor. That should be reported by someone.
Yeah, I'll double check with the neighbors as well. But it's kind of faint, you know what I mean? It's
Do you have gas on Eagle? Do you have gas lines supplying those there?
Yeah.
Okay, well then people should be called and let them know.
It doesn't have to be the owner, you can call the gas company yourself.
Yeah,
If you
anybody
smell
can.
odor, anybody can call. I would not rely on the owner to do that if he's already negligent, as you say, on his property, just for the safety of the neighborhood.
I will say that like the public property was what we focused on with the Goose Creek watershed assessment, just because we couldn't access all the private property. However, you know, like the HOAs and stuff like that, we were able to get eyes on a lot of stuff. It's easy, like municipal properties are the easier thing for the MS4 and, you know, the PRP compliance thing. But it's, I mean, if they're private properties that, you know, I mean, there's been a lot of times where a landowner's like, yo, my stream is eroding all over the place. I want to kind of do something about it. It's like, there's a ton of private land out there that, I mean, could be a great partnership between public and private. It's just, when we do these big, broad, sweeping things, you know, the level of the logistics involved in just getting on every property is tricky.
Yeah.
So
We're trying to focus on ones that are in our control, which are the ones that properties that the township currently owns. So in a future permit cycle, we may well be looking for other projects that will end up having to be public-private partnerships. But anyway, thank you. All right, so are there any other questions on this? Very good. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is discussion and possible approval of resolution number 32, 2025, granting approval for an amended final land development plan for 800 East Virginia Avenue, proposing to modify the previously approved site layout and the construction of a 57,900 square foot building on the property. Brian, would you mind introducing this? I believe we've got somebody here for the applicant.
Yes, so Matt Adams is here tonight on behalf of...
Matt who, sorry?
Matt Adams.
Adams. Welcome, Mr. Adams.
Thank you. Good evening.
Give me a second, I'm trying to get the PDF.
Brian, you want me to give me a brief summary?
Sure, I'll get into it.
So while Brian's opening up, I'll just give a brief summary of the application that's before the board. So the resolution number is 32-2025. The resolution would grant approval of the amended land development plan for the proposed project at 800 East Virginia Avenue. Mr. Chairman, as you stated, the plan proposes the construction of a 57,900 square foot building on the property. The subject property is located in the I-3 General Industrial District. The board had previously granted land development approval of a plan proposing the construction of a 51,200 square foot building on the site at the October 18, 2022 meeting, and we provided a copy of the minutes pertaining to that discussion. The application was reviewed by the Township's Planning Commission and reviewed on October 14th, where it was recommended for approval subject to conditions. We've outlined those conditions in the resolution that's before the board. Additionally, the applicant previously sought relief from the zoning hearing board and provided a copy of the decision that was issued in 2024 for the board's review. We also have comments from the township engineer, deputy fire marshal, zoning officer, and the Chester County Planning Commission. And then there is a letter that was issued earlier this year by the applicant's legal counsel pertaining to deed restriction of a property located at UPI number 52-5-30.
Thank you, Chris.
So I have up on the screen an exhibit that Matt Adams provided to the Planning Commission that shows in red what is proposed in the amended application over the black, which overlaid over the black, which was the previously approved and recorded plan, which was recorded in 2023, in January. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Matt. He can make his presentation and answer any questions you have about the property. And I can bring up any of the plan sheets you want. I just figured you would start with this one.
Sure, thank you, Brian. And again, thanks for having me tonight, members of the board and township staff. So I was here 4 years ago going through the last land development process on this property. So the folks that aren't aware, this is the Schramm campus, kind of straddled between Henderson to the south and the Chester County Hospital to the north. It's about 26.1 acres in total, 7 different buildings totaling about 300,000 square feet. We acquired the property about a little less than 10 years ago from Schramm, kind of a household name in Westchester. Started in 1900, would be going on 125 years by now. Unfortunately, the company kind of morphed since we owned the property, and they slowly kind of downsized. The good news of that is that West Goshen is an area that people want to be and start businesses, so we've had a lot of activity backfilling those buildings, which kind of led us to the back portion of the site. I don't know if you could zoom in just a little bit for me, Brian, just so I could show some folks here. Yep, so this is the Schramm campus here. This building here is all the way on the western boundary, and in the back here was kind of outdoor storage for Schramm Inc. They were in the air compressor business to begin with, and then ultimately in the oil rig manufacturing, controlling it from start to finish. And they had a lot of product lines. There's some construction back here with concrete driveways, outdoor storage, and whatnot. So we came in 4 years ago with a plan to expand the campus, just given the activity that we've seen. That building was designed as a traditional kind of warehouse distribution building, so higher ceilings to accommodate more of your typical 53-foot trailer, tractor trailer storage. So you can see on this plan, I know it's kind of hard to see, it's a little small, but the gray box here was the former approved plan that was recorded in January of 2023, and this whole area in the back was loading court. So trucks were going to access off of Lincoln, come up Kimes, all the way up around the backside of the building, back into their loading position,
and then proceed back out the same way they came in. After marketing the property for about 2.5 years, it was a larger building, almost 51,200 square feet, and it really didn't break well. So it was really geared towards larger tenants, more of your distribution type tenants that would be racking materials inside. And just all the activity that we've had in Westchester, not only on this project, but other products that we have in Chester County, there's a high demand for shallower bay warehouse space. And when I say warehouse, it's more of your 4,000 square foot spaces versus 50,000 square feet. So if you think about the trades, contractors, plumbers, electricians, all the people that need a place to kind of park vans, have their materials inside. And we had a lot of success leasing a similar sized building, which is the one I pointed out that was on the western edge right of the property here. Just being able to break that building up as tenants come. So this is essentially called a flex building. So an electrician, an HVAC company comes and says, I need 500 square feet of office, the rest warehouse, I need air conditioning, I don't need a warehouse, I need 2 drive-in doors, 3 drive-in doors. This building allows much easier ability to kind of break it up. So just given the grading that was involved with the old building to have dock doors on the back, so that's down 4 feet. So again, the new plan, we needed the ability to drive around the building, so that way you could park and load on both sides of the building, drive through the building. And average size tenant, I think the smallest for this proposed revised plan would be about 4,000 square feet. So it would be a 40 foot wide bay, and the building's about 100 feet deep. So you potentially could have 2 drive-in doors to pull equipment through, load up your trucks to go out for the day. But again, more geared towards folks that are working, living in the community, that are servicing properties, either commercial or residential, versus traditional warehouse space, which it could be a multitude of different users that have distribution networks in the in the area or in the region. So nothing's changed from the plan set that we got reported back in 2023. All of KIME stays the same. So right now this is about a 12-foot wide, really rough shape access drive for the properties that you see here to the west. That existing driveway we own, and it's an easement to these neighbors along KIME. So we're widening that to about 28 feet. We're adding a sidewalk along KIME all the way down to Lincoln. We're actually adding a guardrail, some crosswalks to accommodate some folks here on KIME to be able to access that bus stop safely now that we're going to widen that road. A sidewalk was originally proposed and still is proposed on the plans. You can't really see on here, but it would go all the way down to Garfield down to Virginia, and all the way down the property line. So it's a very large sidewalk. We can talk about that in a little bit. That was one of the discussions that we had during the Planning Commission meeting. The sidewalk itself is going to interfere with 5 heritage trees. So I sent out an email to Brian earlier in the week. We had our arborist out there yesterday. We are open to other suggestions if it was, if you felt that sidewalk, given that it is in an isolated industrial district, would be better served somewhere else in the community for either an integral connection, repairs. We'd be happy to pay that fee in lieu of, if that would be something that the township would be willing to talk about. But yeah, here we go. So if you could just shoot down there, Brian, that's actually a great view. So just, again, I don't want to get too bogged down with the sidewalks yet, but like just for example, I know it doesn't look like a huge tree there. That's a 67-inch white oak tree. So, I mean, that's probably 120 years old plus. The next tree down is about 55 feet. So in order to put the sidewalk in, we got to blow out that tree, this tree, and then there's a sycamore, I think a spruce tree, as well as a really nice sized sweet gum. So again, just a thought, and I know we talked about, yeah, you were at the meeting. Yep.
I don't want to get bogged down with sidewalks right now either, but when your plan that you're proposing now, you're showing the sidewalk but not removing the tree, just putting a saddle around the tree. So I just want to...
Yeah, so if you go, I don't know, Brian, if you could just zoom in on that tree, if you could just spin around, it's really the root networks. I mean, this whole thing's bulging out here, and you have that fence line. So to actually put the sidewalk in there and not disturb the roots. And again, we have it on the plans. We're willing to do it. We just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that, again, it is a sidewalk that we understand, you have to start somewhere. We're open to building it, but again, there's a casualty and there's a number of trees, and we're happy to take that money and allocate it towards other projects we thought was better suited. So again, that I don't need to speak any more about it.
Did you have your arborist?
Yep, he came out yesterday. Yep, so I went out, I did the best I could, using online databases to figure out leaves and different bark textures to figure out what the trees were, and I was wrong on 2 of them. So he came out. They, I thought this was a bur oak. This is actually a white oak. 2 white oaks.
Are the trees healthy?
They are. So, I mean, this is a 67-inch tree. So, again, it's probably in the 7th inning. The other ones, there's a sycamore that's in really good shape. The sweet gum's in phenomenal shape. And there's like a double trunked, I think that's like a Norway spruce. So, again, just wanted to bring it up, but that was all included in our original recorded plans. So, nothing's changed. We're still planning on doing so. It was just a matter of, board discussion. We talked about the planning commission. They decided to say bring it up at the board meeting. So again, as far as the overall plan goes,
can we go back to the overall plans? The one you just did that, looking at that one.
The previous one.
The previous one you had up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the overlay.
So the new building is coming closer to this property line at the bottom there, or on the left, sorry, of the current property, right? It's a longer building.
Correct.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
Yep.
So one of the issues that you wanted to do is get the zoning relief, which wasn't granted for the 100-foot setback from residential property. So how are you complying with that, with this new configuration?
Great question. So we ended up acquiring this property. So this is 211 Kimes Avenue. So we acquired that property and we decided to deed-restrict that property as part of this project. So as soon as construction would commence on our project, that would no longer be able to be used for residential. So that 100-foot buffer is really a setback from residential uses. It's not a conforming use in the I3 district. So without that residential use, the buffer would not apply because it wouldn't adjoin on this property.
Sure, that's for the deed restriction.
Yeah. So what is the distance from Mr. Wallace's property to the new construction, from that property line over to the?
That's about 100 and I want to say 115 to 120 feet.
So it does meet that setback then?
Correct. It would just be this future use of this property. So as part of our original,
I'm just talking specifically about Mr. Wallace. He's still at 100+ feet away from.
Correct.
The commercial.
Correct. Work. And as part of the original recorded plans, when we acquired this property, we met with Mr. Wallace and we ended up putting a 6-foot cedar fence there along the property boundary as well. So, you have the fence, the existing structure, which is about a 1,200 square foot ranch style home, and then obviously the grades go up. I think the one benefit of, again, the building had to be narrower to accommodate the shallower bay users that we're going after without losing the square footage. But I will say this building is not as high. So from a buffering standpoint, when you're looking from here, this building would typically be built to maybe 30 to 32 foot clear on the inside of the building, which would get you up to that height limit of 35. Whereas the building we're proposing, for your typical trade type operators, subcontractors, I mean, the ceiling heights may be anywhere between 22 to 24. So you're probably, 8 to 10 feet in height less than what it would have been without the tractor trailer traffic. So I think there are some benefits with the building design and kind of the tenants that would be occupying this type of space. And again, what we find is they're mostly local companies that are serviced in the area. So again, I named a number of trades, but pool, HVAC, plumbers, electricians. I mean, you name it. It's a very similar product to what they have at the Lincoln Independence Center. I don't know if you've seen that when you go up Lincoln a little bit further, the flex buildings in the back that Senya and Bob Kashada have built.
Probably with those, but generally know the concept you're talking about.
Understood. So.
Hey, Matt, just to follow up with one of the questions on this property, there's the building there now.
There is a building there now.
It's deed restricted, so it can't be used for residential purposes. What's your plans for that building?
So I did reach out to the Wallaces. Right now, it is built as a residential house. We've maintained it, we painted it, we put new HVAC in it. There was a gentleman that is a tenant in one of our buildings that was occupying temporarily. We reached out to the township with that as far as rental. But as soon as we start construction, that has to cease. So the only thing that we can do on that particular property would be to change the use to a compliant by right use, which for that typical structure would be an office type tenant, which, again, I think it's going to be very difficult to find an office tenant. some type of general contractor that needs a couple rooms and then there's a shed out back, but that would require zoning relief as well. So we'd have to come back in to get zoning relief on either a by right industrial use, because again, the 100-foot buffer off of the Wallace's property, we're only 70 feet wide. So no matter what we do, the entire property is blanketed with a buffer. And there is an industrial use in the back, which is almost 0 feet here, and then obviously there's industrial to the west. So, sorry, I was trying to think this building was on the east side of the property. So again, either way, we have to come back in front of the zoning hearing board.
Okay. Anything else you want to describe, or?
Any feedback on the sidewalks? I mean, again,
we'll get to that in a minute. So it's one other question while we're on this particular topic. So
sure.
Back in 2022, there was a conversation around an email exchange between Mr. Khan and some of the property owners. I believe it was all figured out in perspective of the sidewalk, where the sidewalk was going to be and how that was going to be managed.
Yep.
So is anything that was in that correspondence that was talked about when the previous plan was approved that is still applicable to, or that isn't included on this plan that you're presenting?
So when I had talked to our engineer, Andy Eberwein with E.B. Walsh, nothing has changed on Kime since it was recorded in 22, which we incorporated. And again, I'd have to go back through, but again, there's a guardrail, there was a crosswalk, there was a sidewalk, and then there was a fence all the way down to Lincoln.
I can speak to, from reviewing the plan, that nothing to the west of where the Kimes meets the area of the parking has changed from the previous plan. I compared the two when I did my review. The breaks in the guardrail that were agreed upon with the residents to allow the walk straight across and access the sidewalk are still there. The sidewalk is in the same spot.
Yeah, so what I don't know is if that was what was approved as the final land development for the 51,200 square foot, that was conditioned on compliance with the agreement with the neighboring property owners outlined in this email correspondence. So I don't know if that was already incorporated or this was the plan that was approved, but there were some other requirements that were in this email that was made a condition of the approval. So I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, so Mr. Walsh, is there anything else in there that from the
I'm just reading the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Right, it was in our packet. I don't know what the agreement stated at all.
Yeah, and again,
No, I think everything seemed.
Was it signage or was it the sidewalk? What was it?
There was a few little other things like when it should speed limit sign or stuff like that, but it wasn't anything like structural crazy.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, so let's talk about the sidewalk then. So, I mean, I'm hearing that to construct a sidewalk, you're going to have to basically, you believe, even though it's shown on the plan as being able to go around it, whatever's done to either do that is either going to kill the tree anyway, or you're going to have to remove them to make it a straight shot. Is that what your view is?
Correct. Yeah, we spent a considerable amount of time on Google Earth and walking the site. Just, I don't think there's any way to not disturb the root systems on those trees and not, yeah.
But what I heard you also say was in lieu of a sidewalk, you were willing to, in lieu of a sidewalk at this location, you were willing to make a similar financial contribution to the use for sidewalks elsewhere within the township, wherever was appropriate as the board comes across these opportunities down the road.
That is correct.
Okay, so
We're looking to get out of our financial obligation. It just seemed like a place where maybe a sidewalk wouldn't be warranted.
So that's my view. I know we have it in our salad to put a sidewalk in. This is not specifically a location where I think that's a really great, useful place for a sidewalk. We have other things that we've come up with. We've had residents petition us for sidewalks that we've accommodated. There are other things within our comprehensive plan where sidewalks would make more sense within the township and they're part of a longer term goal. So I'm speaking for myself, board members, I would be more in favor of giving a waiver for the sidewalk installation at this particular development application, as long as there's a fee in lieu of that we would use at some future date for sidewalks elsewhere in the township.
Let me explore another possibility. We discussed it at the planning commission meeting, got the possibility of putting the sidewalks on the other side of the street in a right of way. Now, granted, that's not your property, but is that something that is feasible? Is that something that could be done?
Again, I think putting that isolated piece of sidewalk in with no connection across the street, for us, we were kind of opening up to say there's a couple sections, at least by the school off of Montgomery, that could probably use a connection piece, coming up from this site. But again, I just wanted to bring it up because, again, this sidewalk's going to kind of sit in isolation where we have it presented with those trees missing. So whatever the board ends up, deciding we're happy with, that will require somebody else as a party to that agreement that would then be responsible for maintenance of a sidewalk that's on their property. So again, I don't know how likely that would be.
It's an idea and a suggestion. I think it's a poor suggestion, though, to the flexibility that's given to us by a fee in lieu of.
Correct.
But we can put a sidewalk in a more potentially beneficial place for the whole of the township. We don't know what it is today, but it's at least the money would be there to do something.
Sean, just to be clear, this is not for the sidewalk on Kine, this is just a
Correct. I
sidewalk around the
understand.
site.
Kines gets a sidewalk because there is a resident on that property that wants to be able to get out and walk his dog or whatever else and not be run over by a truck. So we get that. So what are the board members' thoughts?
I agree.
Okay. John?
Would the rest of the property still get sidewalks, or was it just this?
Just Kines.
No, just this or the rest of the properties?
So what we're proposing would be get that to the township, just because, we'd have to take out those trees. Yeah.
Well, personally, I'd like to see sidewalks, because you have to have, start somewhere. I would like to explore the possibility of having the sidewalks on the other side of the street. So if we did get monies from you for that sidewalk construction, we could possibly pursue that option.
Well, what about, like, I know this is, of course, you're more onto the property, but, like, on that side of the tree, like,
The sidewalk has to be put in the public right away because it's a public sidewalk. Once they put it in their property, then it's a whole liability, and they gotta be easements and all the other issues that is not.
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, but the point is that there is a right of way that on this side of the street, because the right of way of the township, I don't know how wide that is at that particular area on Lincoln, but there is space there on this side where a sidewalk could be put.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, John, we can make that part of a future debate. If we've got the money, we could go to the school district or wherever that property is and talk to them about doing that. So for tonight's purposes, would you be in favor of?
Yeah, I would be in favor. I'll be okay with taking in lieu of putting sidewalks on your property, receiving a money's equivalent to that, that would be utilized possibly to put in sidewalks along Lincoln and Garfield sometime in the future.
Okay.
And we'll work with your engineer as far as, establishing that cost.
So based on the discussion, that the condition that would be added to the resolution would be a waiver to be granted from section 7224.2 of the subdivision land development ordinance, conditioned on the payment of a fee in lieu of for sidewalk installation at an amount to be determined by the township engineer. So they'll submit an opinion of probable cost as part of their construction costs for their escrow. Brian will review that accordingly, and included in that would be the estimated cost for the sidewalk, and that'll be determine the amount that will be paid to the township.
That sounds good to me.
That's good.
Before we make a motion to either approve or deny this, I looked at the decision here, the document in the resolution, and there's quite a lot of conditions here that need to be fulfilled relative to the engineer's comments, the fire marshal, the zoning officer, etc. So I presume there's nothing there that we feel is something that is not something the board needs to weigh in on. You will be able to comply with what is in those letters.
Our engineer was comfortable with the comments that have been presented to date, and I think, I don't want to speak for Brian, but maybe Brian.
Yeah, so I made the comment at the planning commission meeting that all of my comments are technical in nature. There's nothing that's going to change the layout of the site from a planning standpoint. It's a technical nature.
Okay.
So Mr. Walsh, a lot of what happened, so the previous building, like the more traditional warehouse building, the grading associated with that was going deeper, but also we couldn't really balance the site. We had too much soil, so we ended up lowering the site, which required us to do all new stormwater infiltration testing, because we only tested to X depth, and we had to go X +3. Okay. So all the stormwater infiltration had to be redone. So to Brian's point, it's a bunch of technical comments associated with, I know the fire marshal had some comments about extra hydrants, but I think most of it was technical in nature based on the modifications made to the plant.
Okay. Do you actually have tenants lined up to use this new building? If it's built, are you still going with, they will build it and they'll come?
So this is one of the first times, and we don't take a lot of risk with spec buildings. You'll see development companies go ahead and put these big buildings up, like there's one in Lionville that you've probably seen right before you get onto the turnpike. That building is empty. They built it on spec. It's, I think, 400,000 square feet. That's not something we do. This particular building, just given the amount of activity that we have for this type of space, it's really hard to find. If you needed 4,000 square feet, it's almost impossible because nobody ever really built to that. They were all building big box industrial, the Amazons of the world, the Walmarts of the world. Everybody was chasing a 1 million square foot warehouse, and nobody really built for the trades. And what we're seeing is, you know, with surveillance and security and everything else, HOAs are kind of diming folks out that have a trailer or a van in their parking lot or their driveway. So again, all these folks kind of need a place to operate outside of, you know, outside of their home. So yeah, we're going to build it on spec. You know, we're hoping to find a couple larger tenants, but at the end of the day, the building's designed to kind of break up in segments every 4,000 square feet, and each bay will include a 14 by 14 drive-in door on both sides to be able to utilize for, you know, whatever the business might be.
Okay. Okay, well, I will make a motion to approve resolution number 32, 2025, which is granting approval of the amended final land development plan for 800 East Virginia Avenue, subject to the condition that was previously described by Mr. Bayshore a couple of minutes ago. I don't believe there's any other modification to my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I just had a couple questions before.
We've got a motion now, and you seconded it, right? So is there any board comments on the motion? Okay, public comment. Chris?
All right. I just had a, maybe I read the 100-foot rule wrong or something. But because me and Matt had some correspondence back and forth, and I was like, let me read this thing so I understand what's going on. And the way it read was that it had to be nothing but a vegetated buffer. So is that, am I reading that wrong? Is that something like even if that building was to continue as an office or something like that, now it's not a.
I'm going to look to Chris to ask you questions.
So, Mr. Wallace, so what Matt said earlier is if they come in, I know there's an existing structure there, so that kind of makes it a little bit problematic. So as Mr. Adams stated, if they're going to use that structure for any type of by right use, because it's deed restricted from residential use, they have to request a variance from the zoning hearing board because of that buffering requirement from your property. So they would need to seek relief from that section of the zoning ordinance. The condition already kind of exists, so we can't really.
I was wondering if I was reading that correctly.
Yeah, so they will need further relief in order to utilize that building for anything. And as Mr. Adams stated, once construction commences on this new building, they're going to cease the operation. So you're going to be living next to a vacant building.
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, you intend to maintain that building, not let it fall into disrepair?
No, yeah, it's in pretty good shape. And again, I know we had an issue with the landscaper, like, forgetting a couple weeks, but I mean, what would you say, Chris? I haven't been up there in a while.
Oh, no, the guy who moved in, he cleaned it up a little bit. Like that. Then the other question was, I know the apartment complex or whatever, it's on the other side of that property, or on the other end. I know they had like a letter put in when the zoning got denied last time. It doesn't seem like it's that different of a distance between that property and this new building.
So,
did something change, or?
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I mean, it was a determination made by a prior township engineer and
so the existing, on existing recorded plans, there is an agreement made with the township well before my tenure that there is an existing buffer right here. It's not the 100-foot buffer from the residential use of the apartment district. I honestly don't even know what the setback is on the recorded plan. It was the recorded plan to build this building, actually. But there is an existing agreement on record somewhere with the township that says why there is no buffer requirement here for the 100-foot buffer. I want to say it's about 10 feet or 15 feet from the property line. So the building that they were looking to propose to put here, there was already an agreement for this one. Our concern was those properties down on Kynes.
And Brian, if you wouldn't mind just going back to the overlay real quick. The nice thing about the new plan is that the sides of the buildings aren't really occupied as storefronts or in the back. So the old building, all of these loading docks were facing that way. So, you know, when trucks were coming in, and you're talking more like 53-foot trailers, versus the sides of the building now are just kind of getting around. All the doors are on the long side of the building, whereas all the doors are on the back side here. So again, it kind of isolates the industrial uses to the east and to the west versus north and south.
And then we were just worried, like, during construction, we're trapped there. So, like, obviously, you have to widen Kynes first before you do the rest of the construction. Like, I know our power poles are on that side, all that kind of stuff. I know that eventually those kind of be moved and all that stuff. But we want some kind of like understanding of what's going to happen prior to that happening. I know you've been pretty good with corresponding with me back and forth. So that's all I was asking for is keep that going and like do you envision on how we would get out of there during this construction?
Yeah, so this construction sequencing, and we have in-house construction management. We hired a third-party GC to manage the project, but you'd be interim those conversations. I mean, the streets aren't getting shut down, things aren't happening, power's not getting shut off without notice. But just to give you an idea, like the old plan, there was a secondary means of access to get back into the Shram campus back here, which was really for emergencies only, but it was a very steep grade. We actually, by lowering the site, were able to match this grade. So in those rare instances where maybe this would be shut down for a little bit, we could get you back through here, you know, on that way. But we can definitely, I mean, we're going to work pretty closely on this, just given, you know, and not only you, I mean, the two other properties as well that are on time.
As you know, like a high schooler currently, I just want to know, like, so primarily Kynes would be used for deconstruction and the movement of it. As you know, I need to get up, you know, early, and then I need to like get to school and stuff and everything on time, and also safely. When our street was originally being redone, it was really bad. Like there was, you know, construction vehicles just like almost always in the way. And at that time I was in middle school and I had to go further out, so my mom had to drive me. And there was no way for us to get out sometimes, so I'd be like really late to school sometimes, like I'd miss like half the day sometimes. So just like mainly for that, I'm just more so concerned with like the clearing of Kynes and if it would be like more reasonable to use that back way more primarily.
Yeah, so for Kynes, just to kind of give you an idea, so right now it's only like 12 feet wide, and it's in terrible shape. I mean, I guess when Aqua came in, sorry, prior to Aqua, it was in really, really bad shape. So it's about 12 feet. You can't really pass two cars now. So really, from a construction sequencing standpoint, I think what you're going to ultimately end up having is there's a lot of grading that has to happen on the west side with the retaining walls to kind of build that up. So that can be done from this side of the property. So you essentially still have that one lane coming in and out, and then the other section of the road would be built, and then it would be flip-flopped. Again, the grades aren't really changing on your side of the, if you said the center line. So again, I don't envision any, you know, major impacts to any travel on time. So again, but that's something we're just going to have to work through. And again, there will be no situations where you're trapped. I mean, you guys would want that to happen. So.
And then the other question that I had was, like, this is a very minor question, but I don't know if relocating mailboxes is a thing, or you can have the post office change it, or if that was to happen, like, we could probably, because basically where our mailboxes are would be eliminated from any of that road there. Is that like a GPS location where we have to have the mailbox, or is that something that we can just pick up the postal service? Or I don't know. This is
I think that might be taken up with the most.
Yeah, we probably don't have an answer for you here at the township, so.
Out of past projects where
Yeah.
We don't really, municipalities don't really regulate the location of post office other than them being in the right of way, so I think you have to take that up with USPS.
So Chris, do they drive up Con now, or is it at the end of the road?
No, it's at the end of the road.
Okay, so you would rather have it in front of the house?
I mean, if we're having a wide road, might as well, you know, it's up to the post office, I guess, but.
Yeah, we can work together on that.
Any other questions? Doug?
Sean, your motion includes the planning commission recommendations?
Regarding the bollards.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's in the decision.
That's part of it. So what it is, it's going to be bollards in front of all of the man doors.
Yeah,
and curb stops and all vehicle parking spaces along the perimeter of the building.
Correct. And then at the edge of each one of the drive-in doors will be a bollard as well.
But how can you have a bollard in front of a man door? A man door is in front of a door that opens up to let a vehicle in.
So if this is your man door, you'd have a bollard here and a bollard here to not obstruct the door. So you can do it, so this particular building, you might have 10 different drive-in doors.
Yeah.
So you're really, you're doing bollards already for the drive-in so that nobody backs a trailer into the side of the building. So essentially you're adding another one, kind of, it's not right at the door would still swing open, but it can prevent a car from coming through the man door.
Okay.
And then we agreed any parking spaces that were up against the building, that there would be a curb stop.
Okay.
No issue.
Doug, it's condition number 5.
Any other questions?
One last question. Are you going to be bringing gas onto that building? Natural gas?
Natural gas, yes. Is there no gas in Kime now?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
Where's that line running from? Is it coming up from Virginia or?
So this building right here has gas, and the gas meters are on this side. I'm surprised they never.
Yeah, I actually talked to Pico a couple, like 10 years ago. We moved in, and they wanted like 50 grand just to bring it off the street. Even when they were redoing their sewer and everything, they said like, no, we're not doing that unless you get everyone on the street to approve it. And I'm like,
So we're going to bring it in, and then you can tie into it, because again, they'll give us it's essentially called an E-bar calc.
Yeah.
It calcs the total usage, and they'll give us a credit, to do that. So yeah, we'll drag it up when we're doing the Kimes restoration work. There's a new water line, and then obviously the sewer that we can bring down.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion to second, we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Matt. We appreciate your time.
Good night.
Okay, next is agenda item number 6, discussion and possible approval of resolution number 33, 2025, authorizing the submission of an application to the PA Department of Community and Economic Development's local share account statewide program for the North Hills South Stormwater Infrastructure Project. So let's get to that. A minute here. So I'll introduce this. Before the board is proposed resolution number 33, 2025, authorizing the submission of a grant application to the statewide local share assessment program. The area subject to this application is the vicinity of Owen Road, Collins Drive, and Story Road in the North Hills South stormwater area. This project is outlined in the township's regional stormwater feasibility study that was completed in 2023. The amount requested per the proposed resolution is $1 million, which is the maximum permitted under the program, and the deadline for the submission is November the 30th, 2025. Based on a review of the program guidelines, there does not appear to be a match requirement for the program. However, there is a $100 application filing fee. In reviewing the information from the regional stormwater feasibility study, the work proposed in this area was projected at a cost of approximately $1.1 million in 2023, including professional service costs and contingency. This application was discussed with Chris Peterson at Carroll Engineering, and in terms of completing the application, the township feels comfortable preparing it, utilizing the information in the regional stormwater feasibility study. However, we do want Mr. Peterson to update the budget figures and review the final application prior to submission. and we believe that this would be at the minimal cost to complete that and would be accomplished on a time and materials basis by Carroll Engineering. So board members, do you have any questions on this? Hang on a second, I've got a couple of questions. So, if this is approved, are we budgeting for this project to be in 2026, or how much, or what's the timeline for the grant application? How is
Based on past experience, I would budget this for 2027, because it'll probably take about a year to hear about the awards, and I'm using that on the timeline from when we did the last LSA application at the end of 2023.
So put the application in this year, we'd hear by the end of next year, and therefore it'd be 27's budget for the capital work.
Correct. Now we do have, Mark did include in the 2026 budget some in-house work for this area, so this would be coupled with that in-house work.
Okay, does that in-house work reduce the cost that was estimated previously?
I do not know. That's why I kind of want Chris to take a look at it, because he was involved.
So Chris
in
will
the
liaise with
discussion.
Mark to make sure his updated cost estimate includes anything we're planning on doing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and those, I do need Chris to, so his estimate to kind of like do this whole review was like a day or two,
Yeah.
kind of review everything.
We don't have a retainer with them. We have a proof of as a town material rate sheet, so.
Yeah, we just pay them on,
Yeah.
at their normal billable rate. Because that $1.1 million, as we've seen from, projects, is probably going to increase.
Yeah.
So if we're successful in securing $1 million, there will be a component that has to be paid by the.
For me, so are there any easements required on private property to execute the project?
Look.
Because if there are, we really need to talk to those homeowners now to make sure they are amenable to granting easements to do the work, because we don't want to end up in a situation we're currently experiencing where we can't get an easement on the Basin Road project.
I'd have to go back and look to verify.
So we've got through November to sort it out. So if there is a couple of easements that are required, we should explore that with the property owners around our intention to submit this grant application, and are they interested and willing to work with us when the time comes for an easement.
Yeah, that's what, and in 2022, when we did the first phase of this, we didn't actually secure any easements, we just asked if they would be willing to work with us.
This is my view, you tell me if it's hindsight's learned differently, but I think as long as the current property owner says, I'm willing to work with you, I think it's a good idea, what would be required, you give enough information for them to give you an answer, that's good enough for the grant application. It doesn't mean we still could run into a problem when we get into the detailed design, but.
I'll go back and.
Brian, what do you think? Is that a reasonable approach? I mean, I just don't want to put in a grant application, property owner says you're not doing on my property at all, that's it.
First step is, I think Chris needs to talk to Chris Peterson and see if there's any private property
Yeah.
they need for easements for the project. And then if there is, then those property owners would be approached just like they were for the other side of North Hill.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Those are my questions. Does the board have any questions?
And Chris, just to kind of add on this, I haven't actually read through in a while, but Chris did a pretty good job in the study of outlining where easements would probably be necessary. So my first step would probably be to go back and look to see if he outlined that easements would be necessary in this area.
Wait, this project, does it include these potential rain gardens on private property, or is it strictly the stormwater piping and additions, et cetera? Do you know?
We don't have to include the rain gardens. I was thinking more the hard infrastructure improvements.
Okay,
But again, I will speak to Chris.
great. Any other questions from the board? All right, this board member will make a motion to approve resolution number 33. So Joel's made a motion to approve resolution number 33, 2025, second by Nate. Is there any public comments or questions? Okay, so we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Okay, agenda item number 7, discussion and possible approval of a professional services contract with Dandelions Digital for communications consultant services with West Goshen Township. Let's see. That's with the board. So before the board is professional services contract with Dandelions Digital. The township has worked with Dandelions Digital since approximately 2019. In 2025, the township issued a proposal for request for this service, and they were the only respondent. The proposed service agreement is based on response to the RFP from Dandelions Digital. They have prepared both a 1-year and 3-year contract option for the board's consideration. Each option provides a sub-option to pay the Zen-City subscription either as a either a monthly amount or as part of a lump sum annually. In terms of the cost comparison, if the board selected the 3-year option, the cost would not change during the term of the agreement.
Just to correct one item there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So the fee that we pay to Dandelions would be locked in during the 3-year period. I don't know what the software costs would change. And also I'll note there is one provision, I had the solicitor's office review the agreement. There's one provision related to limitation of liability. We proposed a change to the language. Dandelion is running that by their attorney. I think I would recommend kind of any vote be conditioned on that being addressed to the satisfaction of the township solicitor.
Sounds good, thank you, Chris. So just to be clear, the 1-year contract with Dandelions is $42,000 for 2026, and it would be $42,000 for 27 and 28. And the Zen-City amount is a $5,300 amount for 26. Unknown if it goes up for 27 and 28.
I don't have that.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so I think, as my recollection is the board, after the RFP, wanted to meet individually with Dandelions to assess the services and have a conversation with them. I believe all board members did, and this is what we've asked for in terms of a proposal. So I'm going to make a motion to approve a 3-year contract option for Dandelions Digital in the amount of $42,000 with the cost for the Zen-City subscription spread over 12 monthly payments and subject to satisfactory resolution of the terms and conditions with the solicitor.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any public comments? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Next is agenda item number 8. Is it number 8? Discussion and possible approval of a supplemental proposal from Carroll Engineering for construction oversight of the North Hill Storm Sewer Project. Chris, would you introduce this one, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So before the board this evening is a supplemental proposal from Carroll Engineering Corporation for construction oversight of the North Hill Storm Sewer Project that's currently under construction. Construction on the project began in the beginning of September of 2025, as outlined in the supplemental proposal. Certain circumstances extended beyond the scope of work originally anticipated. The original proposal was approved in February of 2024. I have requested that Chris Peterson prepare a supplemental proposal for the board's consideration due to the anticipated inspection time exceeding the original expected scope. The supplemental proposal outlines an additional, and a correction is additional 290 hours of inspection time. I misread it when I reviewed the original proposal, which includes time for punch list preparation and final completion verification. As outlined, the estimated cost is $37,600. That being said, there are certain cost savings in the overall project that may be realized in order to mitigate this additional expense. As Mr. Peterson notes, the rock removal outline will be approximately half of what was originally included in the bid award, which would result in net cost savings of $27,750.
Thank you, Chris. What questions or comments does the board have? Okay, I have a couple of comments. So first of all, it's disappointing to me that they really missed the amount of inspection hours that they believe are required for this project. I mean, that is a large increase over what they originally estimated for this work. I don't know if the particular duration of the construction was way different than what they originally anticipated, but I don't imagine it is. So just want to express my personal disappointment that they didn't include this adequate inspection hours in the original estimate they provided for the project. Second question on it is really 290 hours of additional time. I mean, that sounds like almost a full-time inspector. Does this project warrant full-time inspection?
They're getting to the point where they're going to be crossing the road starting on Thursday. So they assumed 250 because that's what the time is left in the contract to finish. So we need full-time oversight for when they cross the road because of the sanitary sewer and the water line and issues of getting across the road. That's getting the upper inlet, which is the most important inlet with the snout installed.
When did they start the work on this project?
September 2nd.
So they're 6 weeks into it, and they've expended 150 hours so far. So that's 4 weeks of inspection time.
I don't think they're going to, I'm not sure they're going to need all the hours. I just think Chris gave you all the hours left in the contract. That way they don't have to potentially come back. And this could potentially be less time.
I'm viewing this based on my conversation with Chris and based on my review of the document as a worst case scenario.
Okay.
I'll note, I understand the disappointment and missing the mark. I will note that when they did prepare the original cost estimate, that was before they had done full design. And as the board's aware, Brian and Chris kind of worked together. They did 4 different alternative bid items for the design, numerous meetings with the property owners and with the Civic Association. So there were things that kind of went beyond what was originally anticipated on the start. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I mean, my view of that is that's fine, and it was good, and it was a really good way to engage with the community, and we wanted that work doing. That to me would have been billed as part of the design phase. When we get to the construction phase, we're suddenly hit with, well, we never, will we build for that is one question, and secondly is, well, if we weren't, we should have been, and now we've got this. Well, we really didn't know what to put in for the inspector. They should have updated the proposal when they had the final design done in terms of what we approved for this construction phase oversight. I don't know the timeline as to when we approved this relative to when the design was locked in, but again, I'm just saying it doesn't look good to me.
So I think it was approved in the second meeting in February, and the project didn't complete or go out to bid until sometime in mid-2025, like early 2025.
The original proposal was February 2024.
Okay, so the miss really was they should have updated that proposal.
We should have asked them for updated construction administration proposal at the time.
Can we
It
make the
was
lesson
it was a year and a half later until we got to construction.
This is to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time in my tenure that something like this has occurred.
Yeah. I get it. So it's fine to me as long as we correct the process going forward, so we don't have a miss again.
I will advise Chris that going forward, if there's this long of a duration between them, then we need to update the information.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, then I will make a motion to approve a supplemental amount of not to exceed $37,600 for continuing inspection and punch list preparation and final completion work by Carroll Engineering for the Northville Stormwater Project. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board or anyone in attendance? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Agenda item number 9, discussion regarding the bid for the 2019 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor. Chris.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to keep this very brief because the memo that I provided to the board is now only one option because I heard back today from the second highest bidder and they're no longer interested in the item due to some unforeseen circumstances, so we will rebid the item.
Okay.
There's no action required from the board. You previously authorized it for sale.
We'll move on to agenda item number 10. Thanks for the update. When are we doing another municipal bid this year?
I haven't heard from John about doing another lot of items. So what I can do is ask John if he's planning to do another lot. I would think that given how late we are in the year, probably not. But I can ask him, and if so, we'll just do this as a one-off. Or if not, we'll just do it as a one-off. If so, we'll include it in something that we'll do.
This is just a gut feel, it's probably wrong, but it might be good to bid it out here at the end of the year where people have got a little bit of money surplus in a budget or a personal situation, they want to bid for something, it might be a good time of year to sell something.
I'll call John tomorrow and ask him if he's got anything ready to go, or if not, we'll just move forward.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 10 is discussion and possible approval of the service contract with Pure Water Technology for water filtration service in West Goshen Township. Chris.
Mr. Chairman, before the board this evening is a proposed service contract with Pure Water Technology for our water filtration services for the township's facilities. These are the water coolers in the township buildings. They're tied directly into the water system as opposed to a traditional water cooler that has a tank. The service is currently provided by Primo Water. It was formerly Crystal Springs, and they got bought out. And Mike Cacavo, our Assistant Director of Public Works, has been having significant issues with their service. He's been researching possible alternatives and discovered and found this company. The agreement presented to the board would be for 5 years and result in an annual savings of approximately $1,200 per year over the current charges.
Thanks, Chris. So good work by Mike. It looks like he's found hopefully an improved service level, right? Has he done any follow-up on references for this company at all?
He hasn't indicated to me any issues or concerns with this company.
Okay.
Is this going to include testing of any sort, the water?
No,
To make
this is-
sure it's, because
It's just-
replacing the filter, but a lot of that depends on the pipe.
Well, it's just like our water cooler system. It comes directly from the public water system.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the greatest.
It's just like it's similar to the water on your refrigerator.
Yeah, that's not good either.
I use it for
Like it,
coffee.
okay.
You know what you're filtering out, but I'll get into that.
So how many locations? will
Bottom
this-
line is it doesn't include testing.
I believe there are none.
Yeah, eight one type of water unit and one a different type of unit.
Yep, there are 9 total.
9 units.
These are going to replace the water coolers that have the tanks in them? is that-
We have this kind of system already. It's just a different provider. They replaced this. It was shortly after I got here in 2021.
Okay, well, I will make a motion to approve the service contract with Pure Water Technology for the water filtration service at West Goshen Township.
Second that.
When does this contract start, by the way?
It would start upon signature, I believe.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Is there any questions from the board or anyone here? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Motion passes 4-0. Ari, if you'd like to leave, we're into our reports now, so we don't need to.
One more discussion item.
I don't think we need Ari for that either,
No,
so.
I don't think you need their budget.
Have a good evening. Thanks for being here.
I thought it was staying for me, but
Do we need him for that?
Actually, you know
I
what?
don't know.
Actually, we might need him for the zoning officer's report.
Sorry, Ari.
You're more than welcome to leave.
Sorry
I'd
about
like to
that.
work on my own.
Maybe we'll juggle the order so you can go first.
Ew.
All right, so we're up to agenda item number 11 though, so we do need to deal with this one. Discussion regarding an amendment to the West Goshen Township's 10-year capital plan to replace the township's Faro scanner in 2026.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to introduce this?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Mr. Chairman, before the board this evening is discussion regarding a potential modification to the township's 10-year capital plan. The board did review the update to the capital plan at the September 16, 2025 meeting. Subsequent to that meeting, Brian received a quote that I provided to the board to replace the Faro scanner earlier than originally projected. The current capital plan outlines a replacement in 2027 at a price of $42,000, which is in line with the quote received. Speaking with Brian, the township currently pays $5,000 per year for the warranty on the current scanner and $2,514 for annual software licenses. Additionally, the features of the scanner controls are such that Brian believes that upgrading a year early should be considered, and the new scanner would be more powerful, works faster, has increased memory, and would be able to be controlled by a tablet. I'll note that there were no capital items outlined for replacement for engineering originally projected for 2026. The question that's before the board is whether to adjust the capital plan to replace this item a year early or remain with the current schedule, with the latter resulting in the replacement being more expensive. And Brian, I believe you told me that they're going to give us $10,000 for the old
Yes,
scanner.
so the genesis, I got an email right after we had that meeting that they were offering a sale for us to trade our unit in, because we'll have to either buy the warranty again to keep it, or we can trade it in. So I got the quote. They're offering us almost $10,000 as a trade-in value on the new scanner, which will allow us to keep it in line with our budget. The only reason I asked for the price quote to see where it fell was because they offered a trade-in allowance and a sale price.
So is the trade-in further reduction of what's in
No,
this packet is included.
That includes it. The trade-in is included as the bottom of your quote, 9,000 and, yes.
That's a trade.
That's the trade on the current unit. We can keep the current unit for another year and roll the dice and see what happens next year.
The current unit is how old? 6 years old now?
10. I think it's 9. I think it's 9.
I believe you're correct.
19 on the list. So February of 2019.
I thought we were a 10-year replacement. Maybe it's a. I don't remember what.
2019 was a purchase date.
Okay.
Brian, are the warranty and annual software licenses the same?
The warranty is every 2 years I have to take it to get it calibrated. So the warranty is if anything happens to it during the 2 years, and then we pay to calibrate it again. So, and luckily for us, I don't have to ship it. It's over in Exton. I drive it over to the office, drop it off. They do the calibration and check it, certify it for 2 more years, and give it back to me. But that is something we do to keep the warranty. The new unit comes warranty for 2 years with it. That's from the factory, from Faro. New unit is controlled by an iPad. Currently, there's a little touchscreen on the side. It's not as easy to use. The new unit, you control it locally with an iPad connected to it. So you get the full iPad. It also shows you the scan on the iPad. The current unit just shows you a little picture, a little small. So the current unit functions. There's not an issue with it. It's just I presented it to Chris because when they gave me the price back, it fell in line with our budget number for next year's capital plan.
I've got a question for you. You think if you put this on municipal bid, we could get more than $9,000 for it?
We haven't had luck selling technology items, because we've tried to sell like plotters and large scale items, and we got less than what we value.
This is a little more specialized though, isn't it?
It's a very specialized piece of equipment. And with the certification on expiring next year, we can't even sell, we wouldn't even sell as a certified. Because they'd have to then enter a contract with Faro to get certified.
So you just could say, yeah, it's good.
I don't think we get $9,000 for it.
It's okay. I'm bidding. All right. So you would have wanted to put this on the capital plan for next year, right? For 27.
It was in the 27 plan. I just presented it because when the number came back, I said, sure, what's the sale? And I got it. And they said, oh, we'll trade. And when they gave me the quote, if the quote came out that was more than the budget number, I would have just left it alone and said, no, thanks, we'll keep it for another year. But since it came in right around our budget number for 2027.
So they reached out to you?
Yes, because we are due for an update. Because our annual subscription to software expires at the end of the year. So as part of the reach out to get the software update paid for, so that they also brought up, hey, we got a new unit, it's brand new, we're running a sale on it. Our current unit scans the 70 meters, the new unit will scan to 100 meters, so it'll scan further away, it scans faster, it scans and takes more.
Sure, expense. Do we need the complete care package year 2 now? Is that really just nice to have? Why do we spend out of the $1,900?
So that's the 2-year warranty that we currently pay $5,000 for.
Okay, so if we bought it without that, would we have a 1-year warranty?
I'm not sure what the warranty is off the top. I think that the manufacturer warranty, but that 2-year warranty is the certification and recalibration as well.
So if you didn't have it, you'd have to go pay for that separately.
Yeah, and we pay $5,000 every 2 years for that now.
Okay. So you paid $1,900 for 2 years. For
yes.
2 years.
That's a 3-year manufacturer warranty. So
okay. All right. I'm willing to make the motion to add the purchase of the Faro scanner to the capital plan, but you're going to buy it this year, right? You're going to order it now, aren't you?
What we can do is, I wonder if what we can do is similar to what we did for, what John Liddy did for the iWork program in 2024. He got everything set up, but they didn't invoice us until next year. So ask them if they can do that.
Yeah. I'll talk to Faro about it.
They may want to book the sale this year, which means they're going to have to invoice you this year. That's not a problem.
I'll talk to them and find out.
Okay. Either way, whether you have to be invoiced this year and it's an extra 25 budget line item, or if it can be, actually the invoice can wait until January. I'm still making the motion to procure it. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nick. Any conversation from the board or anyone in attendance? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. So, move on to 16. Do we need to motion to amend the agenda order, Chris, or is it okay for just to do it out of order?
You can take the agenda in any order you want.
Very good. So,
Just in add items.
very good. We'll go to zoning officers announcements. Shelby.
Just 2 items to highlight. One are both are zoning hearing board cases. One is a case for 120 Kirkland Ave, who is looking to install a 6-foot fence in their side yard, front yard. 120 Kirkland is a corner property of Kirkland and Pembroke, and in essence, they are looking to put a 6-foot fence along their property frontage of Pembroke to enclose what they consider their rear yard. The second application, which is a little more complex, is the application on behalf of was it Keystone Homes? The applicant is Crescent LLC for the property up in Kirkland Woods, specifically Lot 7, known as 310 Kirkland Avenue. 310 Kirkland Avenue, Crescent LLC on behalf of Keystone Custom Homes had submitted a zoning permit application to install a noise reduction barrier, sound reduction barrier, and in essence, that would have been a 4-foot concrete wall with an 8-foot tall solid wooden stockade fence spanning about 137 feet down the property line between the property at 310 Kirkland and the 50-foot wide gas pipeline easement. Kirkland Woods had made it known that they think that it is necessary to help with the sound attenuation from the Route 100 bypass. Subsequently, we denied that application. I denied that application as a sound attenuation screen. It is not a residential customer use in working with Kristen's office. And subsequently, Kirkland Woods, again, Crescent LLC, as the property owner, has appealed my decision. And then in the alternative, also has sought variances. So in essence, the board has the option to determine if they want to enter in an appearance. At the time, Kristen's office will be representing me for my appeal. And then they're also seeking variances should that appeal not go through.
So, just to kind of add on to what Shelby said, the applicant is appealing her determination, so we would send the solicitor to defend Shelby in that appeal.
Is it a developer or is this an individual property?
It's a developer. One of the issues at hand is, as Shelby said, it extends at a pretty extensive length. And I believe, and Shelby, correct me if I'm wrong, they provided no information on who's going to be maintaining this.
Correct.
So, the developer has indicated that if the board remains neutral on their variance request, they will drop the appeal of Shelby's determination.
Just seek the variance.
And just seek the variance. So that is the question that is before the board.
Is there any other noise attenuation, fences, walls, devices on any of these other properties facing that, where that easement is facing the bypass?
No, not to my knowledge. This would be the only one.
The sound barriers are all along Route 100 installed by PennDOT.
Is there any on this? Is there any sound barriers on this section?
No.
Of Route 100?
Yes.
Not in the section in which the Kirkland Woods development is.
They're down further. They're down further. So why don't they extend further out?
I can only surmise that PennDOT installed them where they chose to install them. Because they would have been installed by PennDOT. They wouldn't be installed by the township of the property.
In a total assumption as well, this area of Route 100 specifically sits beneath the area of the residential neighborhood. Additionally, specifically in the West Goshen portion, you can see that the original house from Route 100 was all the way down here at Ashbridge and Kirkland. So maybe at the time PennDOT didn't feel the need to install the sound barrier there, just due to the topography and the location of the residential dwelling being so far away.
But that's residential for on the other side of Copeland, but over in West Wyland, right?
Correct, I couldn't answer to that one. There also, again, is this 50-foot wide natural vegetation buffer of the pipeline easement. I don't know if that took consideration into PennDOT, that anything that would be built would be so far away, and again, higher in elevation than Route 100 is. But that's pure speculation on guessing why PennDOT does what they do.
What's the difference between a noise reduction stream, which is what they're applying for, and a fence?
Good question. So if you have read their application, their solicitor, Mickey Thompson, he only ever comments about this fence. The application that we had received in our office was a 12-foot tall structure with a 4-foot concrete base and an 8-foot fence on top of it. The application as submitted by Crescent LLC mentions nothing of the wall, doesn't even really talk to the height of the structure itself. It only refers to the fence and how, I guess I missed that a fence is a normal customary residential use.
What he's kind of failing from my perspective is to take into account the fact that this thing is going to be 12 feet high. Our zoning ordinance limits fence height, even the fence part of it is 8 feet tall.
Not compliant.
Yeah. No. The fence part that they're proposing is 8 feet tall. Our zoning ordinance limits it to 6.
And then the 4-foot wall below.
So,
and our zoning ordinance also specifically outlines in which districts and where you can put a sound barrier. It's not prohibited.
we even have a section in 8447 that notes that even if you want to do something like a wall with a fence on top of it, the structure cannot exceed 6 feet in height. So you could do a 2-foot tall wall with a 4-foot fence to get that 6 feet. They're doubling, in essence, what the code requires.
The Boy Scouts property that was redeveloped over there that sits close to 202, was there any consideration for
There's a white vinyl fence along 202.
There was discussion at one point, this all predates any of the three of us. There was discussion I saw in meeting minutes related to some type of sound attenuation item, but it never was final. It never went on the final plans, and it just kind of went away.
I don't remember that particular development. I remember when that came about, we would buy a property there with the noise, and it was about, well, it's going to be trees and all the rest of it. Well, they don't really help. There was no discussion about a 12-foot high thing.
I don't know how tall it was. I just remember seeing some.
So this would be some. So what I'm hearing from you is you object to this intention to put a kind of noise barrier in a residential zoning area. It would be.
I don't object to anything, to be clear. I follow the code, and the code does not permit a 12-foot tall structure in that area.
Okay, Ari, what are you familiar with residential sound barriers?
My experience is getting PennDOT to install a sound barrier, blood from a stone.
Okay, so that's not going to happen.
No.
Are you familiar with other ordinances that allow the construction of such a tall fence type structure?
I'm not familiar with any that prohibit them, but I've seen regulations for the opacity of fences related to this purpose, right? So, for example, it's common for many municipalities to say you can't have a fence by more than 80% or some number. Unless you have 100% occlusion, it will do nothing for sound attenuation. So that's one way that municipalities limit it. Here, looking at their application, were it not for the fact that they called it a sound attenuation barrier from the start, this would look like a dimensional variance for a fence. In that vein, to the extent that they want to just go talk to the zoning hearing board about a dimensional variance for the fence, I think the zoning hearing board is capable of handling that application.
Good advice.
If we're really concerned about this becoming a sound attenuation, it may be possible to send the CHB a letter saying, look, we're concerned about the enforcement here. But candidly, I think the zoning hearing board is also going to interpret this as a variance for the fence.
Okay.
Shelby, do you see this proposal that they're having, setting any obstructive view for any drivers or anything like that? Or does it present any kind of a safety concern?
I do not. Again, it's primarily on their property. It's starting well outside of the township right of way. If I had to take a guesstimate, it's going to start about here and run back about 137 feet, I want to say 150 feet, they provided more than enough detail to ensure that it's going to be constructed correctly, that it does not impact on safety welfare. I do not believe that it impacts any neighboring property owners. I think it's just making sure that they get the proper approvals through the proper channels.
Any other board questions?
So the question before the board is to remain neutral or send the solicitor. To remain neutral, they'll withdraw their appeal of Shelby's determination.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
Joe, let the CHB deal with it.
We'll confirm, of course, that they're withdrawing the appeal of Shelby's determination before we not appear in the hearing. But yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted, I know this hasn't really come up, but I just wanted to note, I think Shelby made the absolute correct determination with the codes of the township.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you. Chair,
Have you any other updates to provide us?
I have not. There is a third application that was filed before the zoning hearing board to put a roof over a patio. That is actually not going to go before the zoning hearing board until November.
Okay.
So.
Very good, well, thank you.
Is that on my updates? Anybody have any other questions? No? Perfect.
See you later.
Thank you.
Okay, we're up to agenda item number 12, which we've already started. But we'll now go to the police report presented by Chief Michael Carroll.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient tonight.
Absolutely. The report from the police department for September of 2025, we responded to 2,021 calls for service. 50 of those were alarms, and 2 of those alarms were determined to be valid. We responded to 87 accidents, 26 were reportable accidents, and we drove a total of 22,814 miles. In the area of those 50 alarms, 5 of those alarms were of the highest fine, so it was either their 6th or 7th violation of the year, and 32 were either a 1st or 2nd violation with only a warning. We performed a total of 18 assists to other departments for just under 15 hours of service and received 17 assists from other departments. We performed extra traffic enforcement on Fern Hill Road, Paley Pike and Spruce Avenue, East Market Street, Eagle Road, and Delancey Place, Snyder Avenue, North Five Points Road, and North New Street. And along with our normal monthly training and updates, we continued with our department-wide control tactics training. Officers Manco, Detective May, Officer Riley, and Officer Story attended TAC Ops training, which is for the emergency response team. Officers Burnt and Needham attended high-impact supervision training. Detective Cuddy attended a criminal investigations using cellular technology and advanced training for our cell phone investigations. Sergeant Spigarelli attended a House of Worship Safety and Security Symposium. Captain Domidio attended an executive level communications training put on by the county. Lieutenant Grandizio continued his Northwestern School Police Staff and Command training. And Officers Ash, Needham, and O'Brien attended the PA Conference for Women. We also have, one second, we had our Coffee with a Cop on October 3rd at Target. I would not say it was overwhelmingly attended, but I think we had a steady flow of people the entire time. We have our trunk or treat coming up this Friday at 6:30 to 8:30 at the Fern Hill campus. And as you can see, we just began the Bluebeards campaign for our officers, raising money from now until the end of the year. Great. So that is the report from the police department. I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Any questions for the chief?
Yes, we had a community meeting last week, so we should be talking about Nolan in the springtime. Would that be with Chester Borough?
So that's our intention. I'll be approaching Josh to come up with a date and see where we are.
Okay.
Chief Lee, when I say Josh.
Any other questions for the chief? Well, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll move on to agenda item number 13, Board of Supervisors announcements. Given the late hour, I've asked that our supervisors keep it very brief. We know you attend a lot of meetings. John, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Tuesday, September the 23rd, I met with the mayor of the Westchester Borough along with Steve Crump. Lillian Batiste was the mayor. We spoke and we talked about any interest that she may have in installing a sidewalk along the Cedar Brook Cemetery, which her family has control of. That's on Paoli Pike. So she expressed that she would be willing to pursue it. And on Wednesday, September the 4th, I participated in the Land Planning Committee meeting to review the proposed revised zoning map as part of the township zoning ordinance rewrite. On Sunday, October the 5th, I attended the grand opening of the new mosque at the Islamic Center of Chester County. It's located on Pottstown Pike, just above the Route 322 bypass. It was a well-attended event. Then on Monday, October the 6th, Steve Crummer and myself met with owners of the properties along Pale Lake Pike adjacent to the Cedar Brook Cemetery. We gauged interest in installing sidewalks there as well, and we're waiting to hear back from them. On Thursday, October the 9th, Tina Marie Smith and myself toured the new rehab facility located at the Farm Firehouse. This rehab center is exclusively for first responders, fire, EMS, and police personnel, and we extend appreciation to Captain Dominio for putting this thing together. And then on Tuesday, October the 14th, attended the Planning Commission meeting as the board liaison. And on Thursday, October the 16th, Nate Woolman and myself met with the Director and Assistant Directors of Public Works, Mark Ptolemy and Mike Camio, respectively, and we discussed the progress of the Streets and Parks Division's merger, the status of upcoming stormwater projects, and the status of the solar array project, as well as a few other items as well, including pursuing OSHA safety training for township employees. That concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Nate?
Yep, September 25th, I attended the Historic Commission meeting. Again, we're talking about the ordinance. October 7th, attended
Just on that, sorry Nate, just to interrupt you. Chris, on the way forward on that, we agreed that we would be trying to get a letter out before the end of the year for a quarter-1 meeting, if is my recollection. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, okay, thanks.
We'll just have to determine, and we can discuss this before the end of the year, we'll just have to determine a date.
Okay.
October 7th, attended the American 250 meeting. Again, we're trying to pin down events for 2026 and 2027. October 9th, I attended the community discussion presented by the police department, and then John mentioned meeting with the Streets and Park. That's it.
Thank you. Any, Tina?
September 23rd, we had our SAC meeting. September 25th, I attended the Crime Victims Police event, which was the second annual Battle of the Badges fundraiser at Belfour Property in Exton, which was an extreme success, I would say. Very crowded, and they got a lot of money from it. On September 30th, we had another Christmas meeting regarding the light display at the park. I did attend September 3rd coffee with Cop at Target, and he said it wasn't steady. October 9th was the police community meeting, and then October 9th was also the famed fire company, John, Protein. On the 10th, Goshen Fire had an open house, and then on the 16th, we had our Fire and EMS Coalition, where we invited East Bradford, East Goshen, Westchester Borough, West Town, West Whiteland, and Thornbury. I did a presentation on the purpose, the goals. We discussed how it was formed, what we accomplished, what our proposed initiatives are, and where we're going in the future, and examples of how powerful it would be to work together. Several examples in there. The feedback was Pam Bear, West Whiteland, was in attendance. Jeff Hockler from East Bradford was in attendance. Michelle Truitt from East Goshen. Mandy Cantlin from East Bradford was there. Myla Carter said she was coming, but apparently her mom got really sick, so she was not able to come. Dick Pomerantz from West Town said he would come, but then he didn't show up, and shown interest left after the first meeting. So I think we have a fair amount of townships that are interested in attending moving forward. 17th, I attended Chester County Chamber of Business event, a women's entrepreneurship, which was a half a day. And then on the 19th, I went to the West Goshen Harvest Fest, which is an extreme success. We had about 500 people there. We purchased about 650 pumpkins, and there was two, so we had about 500 people. And today I was actually at the Senior Center Expo with a table, giveaways. It was an extreme success. That's it.
Thank you, Tina. Just a couple from me. The board met in executive session on September the 26th with the township manager to discuss progress against performance objectives. We also met on October the 7th and earlier today, just before this meeting, to discuss police personnel matters. I attended several police events during the month of September and early October, Police Traffic Safety Committee, Police Community Meeting, and I also stopped by Coffee with a Cop, which was fun. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 14, Township Manager.
Mr. Chairman, I'll keep this brief. The township offices will be closed on Veterans Day, November 11th, or will be closed on November 11th in recognition of Veterans Day. There will be no change to trash and recycling collection during that week. The township's monthly newsletter will be issued on October 24th, 2025. As a reminder to the board, we will have a conditional use hearing for Kia of Westchester on November 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. That has been advertised, and I did send out a calendar invite to the board for that date. In terms of our projects, just to give a couple of updates in terms of our audit, we did receive our final audit reports the week of September 23rd, 2025. I did provide copies of those to the board, and those were posted on the township's website, and we did meet our September 30th filing deadline with Delaware Valley Regional Financing Authority, and Christine has provided those to the other bond company. For some reason the name is escaping me, so we have provided those documents. And CLA has agreed to a 20% total reduction in fees.
Have they billed us yet?
They have, and Christine is going through those.
She's reviewing those with a fine-tooth comb.
Christine is going through those, and we're still awaiting the final tax collector, sewer reserve fund, and pension plan audits.
Yeah. So we need to get those before we make payments.
Correct.
Okay.
In terms of our projects, the Rosedale Avenue sidewalk project began on October 17th. We did issue notifications to the property owner, Calvary Lutheran Church, and Cambridge Hall Apartments regarding the upcoming work. And we did provide dates to the contractor where Calvary Lutheran Church will need the parking lot for certain activities. I drive by it regularly, and it looks like everything is going well. We did have someone from Carroll Engineering out there, and we also had a member of our Public Works Department out there observing everything, and there were no issues reported to us.
Is the completion expected for that?
They had, I believe it was 2 weeks they were expecting completion.
Next week.
So, yeah, probably next week. So when I went home on Friday at like 5:30, they were still working on it.
Good.
So it was pretty impressive. In terms of the university master plan, we had our kickoff meeting with urban engineers on October 14th. They are going to submit comments to the municipalities within 60 days and a final version in 90 days, and we're going to get a status update in the next 30 days. And this is just because of the volume of information that they have to review. We had about an hour meeting with them to go over everything.
So that's a bit of a change in the timeline, because originally I thought by approving it in September, it would be like 30, 45 days. We may be still on track to schedule a hearing this year, but it sounds like that's going to be early next year.
When we outlined a longer timeline, Danielle was very happy to hear that, given the volume of information that's in that plan.
Is Brian Nagel okay with giving us an extension?
He indicated, I spoke to him before this meeting and told him kind of what we were thinking, and he indicated to me that he'd be fine giving us an extension. We go until November 30th right now, so I did send him our update after the October 14th meeting.
So we're just looking at an extension through January the 31st?
Probably through end of February, I would say. Because
when do you think the actual hearing would be held?
So we would be looking to start the hearings in February and probably have the boroughs start them. So 60 days from October 14th would put us in December. Would put us in December. 90 days would put us in January. The reason for the 30-day gap is I want Brian to kind of take a look at it. Brian and Shelby to take a look at everything.
We waited long enough, so.
And we've explained to them that we're not looking for like a full-fledged. We only anticipate one round of comments, because this isn't like a land development application where they go back, revise things to address comments.
Yeah, my only concern is we don't have enough to exceed.
Well, we have a cap at $20,000.
We capped it at that?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's what your motion did.
Yeah.
Okay, so they know that, right? They know they can only.
They added that into the contract that I
They
signed.
gave us revised contracts that say $20,000.
Okay.
And we'll be reimbursed by the applicant up to that cost.
Okay, good.
So, well, they know it's a total of $40,000 between us and the borough. But What was I going to say?
Additionally, there's also changes coming.
Yes, there are changes coming.
To the master plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Including, what's its name on the High Street, College Arms?
Yes.
College Arms and also the removing the parking garage and sites.
Oh, really? Were they looking to move?
Just take it out of the plan completely.
Really? Completely? So that means
That's
they're
my
not
understanding.
going to be closing down Church Street?
Well, no, they're going to be removing the parking garage proposal. I don't know anything about whether or not they're going to proceed forward with their plan to close down Church Street potentially.
I know from feedback at one of the community meetings that the parking garage was going to be removed.
Yeah, that was a big concern.
Brian did tell me that.
Because it would be shutting down Church Street and all that traffic go all over with that.
And
Okay, that's good to hear.
just so the board's aware, there is one aspect in that plan that's being done by the Department of General Services, so it's really outside of our control. There are 2 buildings that were proposed on the plan to be demolished and the land kept as open space. That's actually going to occur in December, but that's being done by the state. That's not anything that we really have any control over. So that's going to be done before the plan is approved, but it's being done in accordance with what's outlined in the plan.
Where is that? It's in the borough though?
No, it's in the township. It's further down behind Sykes. It's land that the university owns. It's being done by the Department of General Services, and it's being just converted into open. It's planned to be kept as open space. There's no construction proposed there.
What buildings are down there?
It's further. It's like some old homes, I believe, that they've acquired. I don't remember the exact buildings off the top of my head.
But could they be residential property for someone? I mean, are they going to, if it's going to not use it? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It's the state doing it.
Yeah. We have no control, let's be honest.
But yeah, that's the update on the university master plan.
Can I ask a question about the university? We're supposed to have a meeting on election day. And
I've heard nothing from them.
You've heard nothing from them?
I can follow up with Julie Dietrich, but I've heard nothing from them.
That'd be good.
Okay. We did receive just a couple of other items. We did receive the draft park recreation and open space plan on October 13th. Ken Lear, Mark Allen, and I are going to review that. Mark Allen is our grant advisor from the county, and then we'll schedule a steering committee meeting to begin looking at it. It's a voluminous document. It's about 211 pages.
Yep. When do you think that'll come to the board, in December?
Probably beginning of 2020.
Is there anything that we need to consider as part of the budget?
I haven't done a deep dive into it.
Could we have, when's the steering committee going to meet?
We haven't set those up. I gave Mark Allen a 2-week time frame in which to give me his comments.
Could we ask Ken or to take a look at it and see if there's anything in there that he feels is low-hanging fruit in terms of a really good idea to do in 26 as an early win? And if so, make sure he brings it forward as part of the budget discussion at the second meeting in November.
Okay. I can absolutely have him take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
But the success is we did get the draft.
We've already happened.
Last 2 more quick items. Solar energy array. We did have, our public works department did do a walkthrough with Terrasol. They discovered 3 microinverters that had malfunctioned. A warranty claim was submitted, and those were replaced on October 15th.
So the microinverters are the large ones that we have, right?
I don't know off the top of my head, but they found 3 of them to be replaced, and they were replaced a week later, done under a warranty. We also discovered that Direct Energy / NRG, who are the former electricity supplier for that facility, failed to return the account to PECO at the end of 2024.
So we've been on NRG billing? We've been on NRG, have been billing us?
That's
for those
correct.
accounts? Okay.
That's correct. We brought this attention to both we brought this to the attention of both CoStars and NRG, and actually it has been resolved. We got a letter from PECO on the 20th saying that the account's been returned back to PECO. I did email our government services representative to talk about any credits that we were lost from June 30th to now, and telling her that we need to be made whole. Because what happened was when they were going through it, Mike noticed that there weren't any credits being applied to our account for the energy that was being generated, and then he saw that it was still being billed by Direct Energy. He brought it to my attention. We sent it to the CoStars group and NRG, and everything's been released, but we got to make sure we're getting our credits for the generation.
I guess you don't know whether staying with NRG in the earlier part of the year was beneficial versus the PECO rates.
I mean, it probably was, considering it was probably, I think it was 3 cents less per kilowatt hour. So,
okay.
and then
Well, we're collecting the inverter data, correct? correct?
As far as I know.
We need 3 months of that.
Yep.
Okay, so we should be able to apply for that.
So the outstanding items are to obtain dedicated login information for the monitoring website, and Mike is going to order surge protection for the Cat 6 cables for the monitoring boxes to the network switch. So those are the 2 last items. I'm still hopeful that we can close everything out in November. And then finally, the family bathroom project is currently out for bid for the community park, and a recommendation on award will be presented to the board at the December 16th meeting, and I've instructed the finance director to carry forward this project into 2026.
When do you think construction would actually occur for that?
Probably in January, February. And I was originally hesitant, but Chris said a lot of it's indoors, so he's not too concerned about doing winter construction.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's everything I have.
Thanks, Chris. Agenda item number 15 is township engineers announcements. Brian.
So I have a couple things tonight. First one is just an announcement that they are going to be starting paving later this week and probably the next 2 weeks out in Greystone for the single-family homes. They're finishing up the twins and the towns and some of the age restricted. They've been working diligently on my punch list items as far as the sidewalks and curbs. I've received a lot of complaints from residents about their cutting the sidewalks, why aren't they? But I worked through it. Just to give an update on our MS4 program, as I said earlier, our annual report was due September 30th. Completed it. This is the chart in there for our BMPs. We have three we consider new, because street sweeping and storm sewer cleaning are new each year because they rotate depending on each year they're self-calculated, and the Government Service Center Basin is now online. And then we have 3 that were already considered old or already in place. These 6 BMPs total 110,591 pounds of sediment per year, which is a 28.29% reduction, will be. But if you look at our chart for our implementation chart from our plan, I have since updated it. So in our report, okay, our inlet cleaning, street sweeping, those numbers go up and down depending on how much we do each year. This is what we built, 59,595, sorry. Basin Road project, which is still in easement limbo to go to construction. That's proposed to be 64,400 pounds reduction. And the 2 floodplain reduction projects we talked about today, if we add all this together, we get to 323,306 pounds, or 82.7% of our goal. So
what's the status of the Basin Road project? Do we have those easements in place?
No, we need to discuss that, and that's a potential acquisition of real estate, so we need to discuss that.
So that's my report, just to show that we are, with what we talked about tonight with land studies and what we already have planned, we are getting really close to meeting our goals.
Wasn't there a couple of other smaller projects? Was this really it in terms of the BMPs for?
We do have other projects still on the books. We have, for example, we have the West Town Road stream restoration, which is the stream around the Government Service Center Basin, is one that we could look at. That's a large project, and that'll take us way over time. Okay. There are 2 we still have in there. We do have 2 basin retrofits, one on Hamilton Drive and one on Farron Drive in the plan. Anything else we'd have to add to the plan, which that would be an amendment to the plan to add them.
Okay. What were those 2 total
up? Less than 10,000. The 2 basins, they're 4,000 change each.
Okay.
So they're saying the Government Services Center Basin, we got 17,815 pounds out of that basin. These 2 floodplain projects are.
Yeah, very good. That'll be good ones to do.
That's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 17, which is approval of the meeting minutes for September the 16th. I provided Chris with a couple of typo corrections earlier today. He says he's included those.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Wallman also provided me with a couple of typos, and those have been made as well.
All right, so I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September the 16th with corrections provided by myself and Mr. Wallman. Is there any other comments or questions?
Second.
Thank you. Got a second, so ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Agenda item number 18 is approval of the Treasurer's report.
dated September the 30th for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, the capital reserve fund, the bills to be paid from these funds. Is there any board comments or questions on the treasurer's report or the bills to be paid? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report and the bills to be paid. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nate. Is there any comment or questions from anyone? Very good, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes 4-0. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:17. Is there a second? Thank you, John. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.